Good evening, everyone. I am Councillor Laura Binks, Mayor of Strathbogie Shire Council. I would like to welcome you all to this ordinary council meeting of the 18th of October 2022, which is being held online due to the unfolding impacts of flooding across our region. We acknowledge the traditional custodians on the places we live, work and play, and recognise and respect the enduring relationship they have with their lands and waters, of which we've become very familiar with. And we pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. Today we're meeting on the lands of the Tangarang people of the Eastern Kulin Nation, and I know there will be some people joining us from the Yorta Yorta lands as well. This meeting is held in accordance sorry, I've just got some feedback. Anne, can I? Okay, I think we've muted you, Anne. If you just if you're good, thumbs up. Yep, thank you. Okay, so this meeting is held in accordance with Strathbogie Shire's governance rules and the Ministerial Good Practice Guidelines MGPG-1 for virtual meetings. If we have technical difficulties during today's meeting, which means we are unable to stream live to the public, we will adjourn the meeting for 15 minutes. If the issue is not resolved after this time, we may extend the adjournment or even defer the consideration of unfinished business on the agenda for another day where the meeting is able to be streamed live. Voting by councillors at tonight's meeting will be held by a show of hands. If a councillor or officer has a conflict of interest in a matter, they will be asked to leave the meeting, and no discussion on the matter will commence until we are sure they have done so. The person will then be contacted to rejoin the meeting after the matter has been considered and the vote concluded. We have a number of community members who have registered to speak to items on tonight's agenda this evening. It would be appreciated if members of the community can ensure that the camera and microphones are turned off until I call your name to make your presentation. This just ensures that we can see all of our councillors on the screen until we need to hear from you directly, so I can see everyone. And I'll call on you to make your presentation. When I do call on you to speak, you can turn on your camera and microphone. If you have poor internet connection and keeping your camera on for your whole presentation is challenging, you can request of myself that you can turn off your camera, but it'd be great to see your face initially just so we know who's speaking. You have 5 minutes to make your submission. A sign will be displayed on the screen at the 4-minute mark so that you know you have 1 minute left to focus on those last few points. Councillors can ask questions of clarification but cannot enter into any debate. Okay, so CEO Salomon, do we have any apologies this evening?
Yes, through you, Mayor. We have apologies from Kristen Favaloro, our Executive Manager of Communications and Engagement, and Vlad Adamek, who is our Director of Sustainable Infrastructure. Both have been working very long hours in the flood preparation and recovery phase, and they are getting some well-earned and overdue rest this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Salomon. Councillors and staff, are there any disclosures of conflicts of interest to be made under Rule 94 of our Governance Rules and Division 2 of the Local Government Act 2020? Yeah, Councillor Hourigan.
Thanks, Mayor Binks. I'm just declaring an interest in item 9.1.4. I have a, which is applications to be applications received. We're just noting the report. In the report, I have a planning permit that has been issued as well. So just only an interest today.
Thank you, Councillor Hourigan. Councillor Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. I have an interest in item number 9.2.4 on Euroa Health Advocacy, but not a conflict. And I have an interest and a conflict in item 9.2.1 on the sponsorship for the Shrine of Remembrance exhibition in Longwood. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Haysberg.
Sorry, my microphone wasn't on. I also have a conflict in item 9.2.2, which is the Mural Music Festival sponsorship request, because I have family members on the committee, and I also have an interest in the Euroa Health advocacy as well. Thanks, but not a conflict.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. I believe that was everyone in that. Yes. Okay, we'll move on to confirmation of minutes of previous meeting. Councillors, the minutes are from the ordinary council meeting held on the 20th of September 2022 require confirmation. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Haysberg.
Thanks, Mayor Binks. Yeah, I'd like to move the motion to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Is there a seconder to that? Thank you.
Hi, George.
Hang on, we have a participant not muted. I will mute them. Thank you. So Councillor Rayburn seconded that that motion. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? No. Sorry. Okay. Can I have a show of hands, please, for all those in favour? Thank you. And against? None. And I declare that carried. Thank you. Please give me patience. It's just getting around the screen and capturing everyone's hands up can take a little while. It's a bit different from the in-person one. So just please have patience as I ensure that I capture everyone's hands up. Petitions, CEO Salomon, do we have any petitions to be tabled this evening?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Yes, we do have a petition this evening, received yesterday from the Rainbow local government team, signed by 57 people in total, of which 79% had a postcode within our Shire's boundaries. The petition calls for Strathbogie Shire Council to join with 71 other Victorian councils in flying the rainbow flag from council buildings or illuminating council buildings or trees in rainbow colours on the 17th of May to mark the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, Intersex Discrimination and Transphobia. And in response, thank you for the petition. This issue was raised in a submission to our review of the council plan in June earlier this year. In considering council's response to this matter, council resolved to reword action 6.1.2 of the council plan to read, implement the actions for year one of the Gender Equity Action Plan 2021-25, along with celebrating the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia through our social media pages and website. Council wants to take a broader approach to celebrating this day to achieve the widest possible coverage across our community to raise awareness of the significance of the day. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, CEO Salomon. Sorry, just unmuting. Councillors, I just need a motion to receive I need a motion to receive the petition according to the CEO's response. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Rayburn.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that the petition lay on the table, but with the response the CEO has given to respond back to them.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Do I have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Hourigan. Thank you, Councillor Hourigan. And I'll put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands, all those in favour that we receive the petition? Thank you. And I declare that carried because every hand went up. I'll go. Thank you, councillors. I'm just going to pause. We have a guest, Anne. are you able to turn your camera off for me until I call on you to speak? You're muted. I can't hear you. That's okay. If you can't turn it off, that's fine.
Sorry.
I'm just wondering if you're able to turn off your camera until I call on you to speak.
Mayor, I don't wish to speak. I just wish to view the proceedings.
Would you be happy to turn off your camera and watch the meeting? There we go. Brilliant. Thank you, Anne. Thank you. Brilliant. It's just with the online format capturing all the councillors on screen, when we have extra faces, it becomes a little extra challenging to see everyone's hands. So thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. Okay, so tonight I'm going to start with my report and then I'll go around to councillors. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank many people, the SES, CFA, Victoria Police, all emergency responders and our incredible and agile community who have worked tirelessly over the past week and to keep our community safe and continue to do so in this really challenging time. To council staff who have also worked around the clock, pushing out information to our community, answering hundreds of calls after hours, opening relief centres for people impacted by floods, closing roads, opening roads, clearing trees in pretty challenging weather through the night, and so much more. I am deeply grateful and I sincerely thank every one of you. We have worked to open transfer stations in Violettown, Euroa, Nagambie, Avenel and Greytown this week. The outlying stations in Strathbogie and Ruffey are closed still this week, but we hope to have the normal transfer station schedule back up and running as of Monday the 24th. And I ask for your patience and understanding whilst we make this happen. All the details of opening hours are on our website, and you'll see at the top of our website, we have a quick click to our flood information. So it's really easy to navigate to the latest updates around the services impacted by council, but also other flood related information. And I know you're all aware of this, but we have another significant rain event scheduled for the end of this week and into early next week. We are again urging everyone to please be prepared. For those that already have sandbags, hold on to them, leave them in place, don't empty them out. Today we've had sand and bags delivered to Violettown, Euroa, Avenel and Nagambie. Again, all the details of the locations of those are on our website. Please understand supplies are limited considering the breadth of the impact this has had right across our region, and you'll need to help yourselves to the sand. So get together in your community groups to help yourselves. We're really sorry, we just don't have the staff to be able to do this at this time. We're urging people to please take care driving on our roads, as so many of them have been significantly impacted by floods. Many road surfaces have deteriorated to a point where some sections are difficult for drivers to navigate without significant reductions in speed. We cannot urge the importance of safe driving and driving to the conditions strongly enough. So please just take care, slow down. We'd much prefer you arrive late and safely than on time or not at all. We know poor road conditions are frustrating for our community and we're working as hard as we can, but there is no quick fix to this. We have already started advocating to state and federal governments for funding. Last week, our council moved a motion at the Municipal Association of Victoria's State Council to lead a statewide advocacy campaign calling on the Victorian government to increase funding for road maintenance. Our motion was supported unanimously with whoops and hollers and cheers from our colleagues. We ask our community to please be understanding. We may not get to your road tomorrow, it might not be next week or next month, but we are working through this. We are triaging our repairs to ensure that the most used roads are repaired first. Remember, you can also log a request on our website, and please stay up to date by following our social media channels and visiting the website regularly. Thank you, everyone. I know we've got a really challenging week. There's a lot of tiredness, stress and anxiety amongst all of us. And we just really encourage everyone to please be safe. Don't drive in floodwaters. We've heard it so many times, I know, the last week, but we just really need to stress if we do end up in floodwaters again, just please put safety first. Okay, that's all for me. Councillors, would any of you like to make a report? Councillor Haysberg.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks for your heartfelt thanks to all the volunteers and the council officers. I really concur with what you're saying there. It's really important that they know how much appreciative the community is of their hard work, and thanks to the community for coming together in this really challenging time. And I really feel for the flood, the victims that the floods impacted on. I know it's tough, and I feel for the communities around us as well, who are still feeling the aftermath of the flood even more severely than we did. So, yes, expressing our thoughts to those communities as well. Thanks.
Councillor Horrigan.
Thanks, Mayor. Did you? I kind of couldn't show. Did you call for me next?
Yes, sorry.
Yes, that's okay. No worries. I concur with everything you said, and what an eventful week we've all had. So, to all our residents from Euroa, Violettown, Avenel, and Strathbogie who've been impacted, my heart goes out to you all. But I need to remind you that we are here to help. So please reach out to us. And we will do everything we can to try and help. So we've got all different portals to do that. You can call a councillor directly, you can email, you can go online, you can stop into our customer service, you can phone. Please do that. Even if you don't need help, but you just want to talk or discuss, that your house did flood, even though you've got support, we really want to log all of them. All our emergency services and agencies, especially the SES and the CFA. I went to one of the community meetings, and one SES member told me that they worked 20 hours straight, which is, so huge. By the time midnight came on Thursday, we know the creek peaked at Euroa at 2:30 a.m. But by midnight, they were exhausted and they just had to stop. So, and I really feel for them. But what an amazing job they've done leading us through the emergency event. And I know the local police, Rob and Reed, did as well. So I really appreciate everything that they've done. And I know that there was many in other communities that also did that. To all the staff who continue to work selflessly and tirelessly throughout this event, they've been clearing roads, they've been filling sandbags, they've been responding to call out of trees down, etc. You've done council and our community extremely proud. Especially when I know that many of you have continued to support our community when your own properties and families were impacted. So that's a really big thank you. I know some staff that came and stayed in Violettown just to keep their eye out on their homes in Benalla, their homes in other places were under a real big threat. So thank you very much to them. But finally to Nagambie, the damage to the caravan park, the thoroughbred industry, the wine industry, it's just devastating. I'm alone. I'm not an accountant. I don't know much, but looking at just Nagambie Leisure Park alone, I'm talking in the millions, absolute millions to get them going. On a long weekend, they've got 1,600 mouths to feed from tourism. That's going to flow onto every pub. That's going to flow onto every cafe. The brewery, everything. It's going to destroy Nagambie's economy if we don't all pitch in and get some help. They've had to deal with COVID. Now they've got the disaster. So we need to call on the state government to step up. I'm very grateful that they've given local government $500,000. I'm very much grateful. So thank you for that. But every day I'm sitting and I'm watching this news report and I can't see, I can see they're helping people that have been flooded, but what about everyone else? So the Strathbogie Shire Council, it's a small rural council that must not be forgotten. We've been hit really hard. We need the state government to step up and provide financial support to help fix our roads, to help support our businesses, to help restore our homes that have been inundated by flood water. We need the state government to step up to help our farmers who have lost their feed, they've lost their stock, and they've been so significantly impacted. We need them to step up above and beyond the $500,000 allocated to the 24 councils for disaster relief payments. While this is welcomed, it really won't go far. So I urge our community to help share our story. So you can write to Premier Dan Andrews, urging him to declare a state of emergency so that we can get the financial assistance we need. Our community deserves more. Our council needs more. So tonight I'm asking Premier Daniel Andrews to step up and show rural communities you haven't forgotten about them. And I can't urge it enough. So please, community, if you're listening, jump on board and give us a hand to write so that, you know, we're not forgotten. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Councillor Horrigan. Councillor Dickinson, did you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge the previous speakers and support them, and in particular Councillor Horrigan's comments. If the community get together and make some fairly strong demands, we might get somewhere with what we're asking. And I'd also like to acknowledge the input from our own Ngambie community. They held a public meeting last night, and 67 people turned up to that meeting, and they basically resolved how they can help themselves, and they got out this morning, quite a number of them, and helped clear the debris from the side of the water right along from the Visitor Information Centre right out to Allura, and that was a community effort, filling bins, putting them out on nature strips, and huge effort, and it was just community initiated. So that's great to see the community band together and help themselves. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to reiterate, I suppose, Councillor Dickinson, what Councillor Dickinson was talking about. Down at Avenel, there's been quite a bit of anxiety and distress in the community down there about some of the impacts of the flood and how unexpected it was in some quarters down that way. But they had a community meeting, and which I was along at yesterday, and the Shire organised, and it was terrifically well attended, and it was great to see the resilience of the community as they stepped up to assist each other in a community effort down there of sandbagging and removing of rubbish and lending trailers and so on. And I was very heartened about the community spirit down there. The same was reflected, I think, in Euroa, and Councillor Horrigan's probably alluded to that in terms of the damage to the bowls club, the croquet club, and various sort of infrastructure. The community got in there, and they worked tirelessly over the last few days to start the clean-up process, and I think that was terrific to see. So thanks to everybody, all our volunteers who are putting in so much effort, and thanks to all our Shire workers as well who are putting in so much effort over the last few days and in the weeks to come. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Murray. Would any other councillor like to speak? Nope. Okay. I will move on to public question time. CEO Solomon, are there any questions from the public this evening?
Yes, we have a number of questions for this evening's meeting, Mayor Binks. We have a number that I'd like to see if John Musto is in with us. He has two questions. John is from Ngambie, and he has two questions. John, I invite you to ask your question.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors and attendees. Can you hear me okay? See me? Thank you. On behalf of my wife, Helen, myself and the residents of Park Street, thanks for the opportunity to speak this evening. Helen sent through our question online yesterday, and I did read through the protocols. I'm pretty much just supposed to read that verbatim. If I'm able to extrapolate, because it sounds a bit trite as a standalone question, but that's entirely up to the protocols of the meeting. So if you want me to just read the question, I'm happy to do so. If you'd like a bit of context, I'm also happy to do so.
If I could just get you to read the question as submitted, please, John.
Absolutely.
Thank
Park
you.
Street Nagambie has inadequate drainage, especially with new development. What is Council's proposal for a permanent solution to a known issue?
Thank you, John, for your questions. I'm our Director of Sustainable Infrastructure, Vlad Adamek, has spoken with your wife and also inspected the property, noting that flood water was being pumped into the main street as a flood mitigation measure. An investigation will need to be undertaken to design a long-term solution to address drainage issues. And I assure you that your issue has been added to the list of matters that require further investigation by experts following the recent flood event where many, many properties were overloaded with water. So thank you, John.
Thank you.
Did you want to ask, did you have a second question, John, or was that it?
Well, I mean, I understand that that's the answer to the question. Obviously, our house is surrounded by floodwater, and it's actually not floodwater, it's drainage water that won't drain. The CFA are in the process of hoping to lower the water level sufficient that our house will remain above water level through the next rain event. I'd like to acknowledge Councillor David Andrews has been a wonderful assistance, and the local community helped us sandbag our home. Our street was formerly pumped from the end of Park Street, which has no adequate drainage. That pump was removed, and consequently, the event that we're suffering now was, I won't say preventable due to the serious amount of rain that we've had, but certainly would not have caused all the septic tanks in our street to flood, and Helen and I to vacate our premises. So we have an immediate problem the next week, which is being dealt with by the CFA. We will then need a temporary pump to prevent this happening every time it rains, and obviously there's a long-term solution, which is what we're looking for. So thank you for your time this evening, and again, thanks to everyone for their efforts. The community has been absolutely wonderful, and what's been a very stressful time for us as a family has been the comfort has been our community has been fantastic. So we now look to the council to provide a more permanent solution to Park Street's woes, because it's not just us. Unless something's done, this will just be a recurring thing, unlike a riverine flood. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, John, and thank you. We will, yeah. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you. Great. And
I did have a question there, Mayor.
It's public question time, Councillor Dickinson. So it's unfortunately we can't take questions from councillors at this point.
I can't ask that person a question. Is that what you mean?
Not at this point. No.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. If I can just get John to lower your hand, that would be brilliant. Thank you, John. Thank you. So back over to you, CEO Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you once again. The next questions are from Lee Cardellini from Violet Town, who also has two questions. Firstly, his first question is, he would like the floodway on Leo's Road, Violet Town, to be fixed as it's becoming impassable to get livestock and property to his area. It's the 2 Mile Creek. And his second question, it was advised last year by a council member it needs a box culvert that was as high as the road. Thank you for raising this matter with us, Lee, and for your questions tonight. We also have added this issue to our list of flood recovery infrastructure projects Not only are we applying for state and federal recovery funding as it becomes available, we're also reviewing our capital works budget for the 2022-23 financial year to reprioritise capital works programs to focus on roads and flood recovery. Thank you. Mayor, the next questions are from Roman Kozlowski. Roman, I believe you're also in attendance and Roman wishes to ask his questions directly.
Do we have Roman Kozlowski with us online?
Thank you. Then through you, Mayor, I will respond to those questions.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I was doing Control Shift something or other and sort of mucked that up a bit. Do you want
No
to see my
worries.
face as well? Do you? Hang on, if I get
if
it
we
right,
can.
we should be.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Turn the camera on. It's not turning on, but doesn't matter. Look, I've only just got two quick questions, and they're pretty innocuous type of questions. I'm actually asking them for someone else. But now, question one, why can't residents have an access point for sand collection on the Benalla side of the Seven Creeks Bridge in case the bridge and surrounding areas are closed and, people are cut off? I know it's, it's incumbent on the people who go and get the sand in the first place, but sometimes people just get caught out. So that's my first question for someone else. And second of all, why can't residents have messages sent via mobile as is done with medical appointments for explicit messages of serious concerns? Simply because a lot of the people who, well, I'm saying a lot, there's always figures, how many people have got access to computers and that sort of thing straight away in flood situations, but most people have got mobiles these days. So they're the two questions. They're sort of a joint. Hello, okay. Can you see me yet? Oh, I know. I wonder if I've got this.
There you go. Now we can see you, Roman.
Oh, I can't see me, but anyway, that's good. Yeah, sorry about that. I had a sticky thing over the top there that I put over my camera. Okay, so they're the questions. So are they answerable at this stage?
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, yes, Roman, they are answerable. So in response to your first question, we certainly acknowledge your suggestion of additional location for sand. However, we feel that the safest and easiest and most central location is the sale yard for Euroa. And we have been consistently urging the community to prepare early for forecast rain events, which means people should take action now for the rain that is forecast for Thursday, Friday and through to Monday. So again, we encourage Euroa residents and all residents across our Shire, in fact, to make their preparations before the rain hits. And please be aware that sandbags are very limited. We urge that you please access sandbags from your local hardware store wherever possible. And Roman, we've also been advised that pillowcases, if you can get them in plentiful supplies, also work a treat as a sandbag alternative.
Excellent.
So in response to your second question, Council did send a message to all mobile phones on our database before last week's flooding event, urging people to prepare for that flood. So for those who did not receive a message, we urge you to please update your details with Council, and this will mean that all future text messages are received, and you can do that via our customer service just by ringing them.
Or just coming to the front counter, yes?
Or you can come into the front counter, absolutely. Thank you, Roman.
All right, no worries, thank you. That kind of answers what this particular fellow needed to know, and he's not computer literate to a certain extent, so I'm sort of being the go-between, but I also wanted to know the questions, the answers as well. Thank you very much. Fantastic work. Keep going, please.
Thank you, Roman, and thank you for supporting the community in that way as well. It's really important that we have these people.
How do you get rid of me, or do you just do it, do you?
On the top right, there should be a leave button, like you're hanging up a phone.
No, I can't see that. Where is that? Oh, is that the one there? Hang up. Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Roman. Does that conclude our public question time for this evening, CEO Sullivan?
Through you, Mayor, that is the last of our questions for public question time.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, councillors, we'll now move on to the agenda. So page 1 of the agenda is item 9.1.1. It's planning permit application number P2022-071, use and development for a dwelling on Crown Allotment 2A, Section B, Parish of Merton, Strathbogie Road, Strathbogie. Director Tingay, may we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, Mayor Binks. This application has been received for the use and development for a dwelling on a small lot the size of 0.8 hectares in the farming zone. The lot is not identified in the Rural Residential Strategy 2004 for managed rural residential development. Following an assessment of this application against the planning scheme, it's recommended that Council decides to issue a notice of decision to refuse to grant a permit. There is a recommendation on page 2 for Council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Binks.
Thank you, Director Tingay. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification for the officer on this item? No? Okay, councillors. Can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Andrews?
Nadia, she's the landowner.
Thank you, Mayor.
Hang on, sorry, pause. We have Nadia who is wishing to speak to the item. Is that correct, Nadia? Sorry, I can't see you. Can you put your camera on? There we go. Okay. Hello, Nadia. Sorry, I missed that in my notes that you were actually here. My apologies. So, Nadia, you wish to speak to the application. You have 5 minutes to do so, and you'll get a 4-minute warning, and then councillors can ask questions or clarification, but we cannot enter into any debate. So over to you, Nadia.
Okay, well, thank you. First, I want to say thanks to everybody for giving me this opportunity. So whilst we acknowledge the grounds of refusal presented to Council, predominantly based on farming matters, our application has considered the planning policy framework as a whole and has addressed all relevant clauses, including the new Regional Growth Plan and Council's local policy. While the land is zoned farming zone, we do not own the adjoining parcels to enable us to consolidate the land. The application has not proposed farming practices on the site, as the land is 2 acres in size and which is more in line with the prescribed size of a block within a low-density residential zone. The block has local historical significance of the former site, which is signposted recognising this. Our application addresses the preservation of the former site and the vegetation of the site. The proposed use and development of the land dwelling will result in improved land management, in particular for pests and weeds, and will contribute to ongoing management for conservation of the former site. As stated within our application, development of the modest dwelling property will allow long-term maintenance of an otherwise previously neglected site with no agricultural potential. A dwelling will allow us to move into the area permanently and become an active member of the Strathbogie community. Our application has addressed and responded to the decision guidelines of the planning scheme. Furthermore, our land has been reviewed against the Hume Regional Growth Plan and is not identified as an area of strategical agricultural land and national or sub-regional significance. Council's local planning considers non-agricultural uses for consideration of applying to Section 173 agreement. We can confirm that we are happy to enter a Section 173 agreement, recognising the adjoining land use of farmers' grazing activity. The location of our proposed house will be within a cluster of existing dwellings, which is encountered which is encouraged rather than being dispersed. This is the last remaining unusually small lot in the location, and allowing development of this last parcel will not create a proliferation of dwellings in the location due to existing development already occurred. The old Strathbogie South High School was located 4 kilometres away, has a house built on the property, which is also approximately 2 acres in size. Given that the location is heading away from the township, we are closer, and I ask that we get the same opportunity to build, given that we are only 800 metres away from the local town. I have letters from adjoining neighbours in my possession. And I can't show you, but I can show you through the screen. And they have no doubts, worries, issues with the plans that we have. My husband and myself are business owners, we're hard workers, and I'd like to open a business there in Strathbogie if I get the opportunity to build. Council, we ask, please consider our position, vote favourably to grant permit proposal use and development, and I thank you again for the opportunity for me to speak today.
Thank you, Nadia. Councillors, were there any questions or clarification of the presenter this evening? No? Okay, councillors, thank you for your presentation, Nadia. Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Andrews? Councillor Andrews? Councillor Andrews frozen for everyone else? Yes. Okay.
Through you, Mayor, I would go for another mover, please.
Certainly. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Andrews, we might just need you froze for us with your hand in the air and we didn't hear a thing, unfortunately. You're still freezing for us, Councillor Andrews. I might ask for another councillor to move a motion, please. Councillor Hayes-Burke.
I'll move the recommendation on page 2 of the agenda. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Dickinson. Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Hayes-Burke, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Nadia, for addressing us tonight. Well, I would really love to see you be able to build your dream home on this site. Unfortunately, the planning scheme just doesn't allow dwellings in this area, and I just worry that that sends a message to the community that will allow development on small blocks like this in the farming zone. Recently, there was one similar that wasn't approved by council in Bailston, and I feel like we need to send the same message here as a council because we didn't approve that one for development either. Yeah, it's really tricky, and I mean, the planning scheme's less than perfect, but that's what we have to work with. Or, you know, I don't know where we'd end up if we were just approving development that was outside the area that we were able to develop. So, yeah, I'm sorry that that's the outcome, but I have to agree with the officer's recommendation here.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Councillor Dickinson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I have to support Councillor Hayes-Burke's comments here. We are not the experts, it's the planners who are the experts, and we have to respect their knowledge, background, and for that reason, I'm voting against this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Would any of the councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Murray?
I'd like to speak in favour of this application. I believe we ought to make the decisions on the best of our information. I think there is a good argument here for some allowing this development here on the edge of Strathbogie, opposite what we anticipated was going to be some residential development over the road. It's on a corner just going out of Strathbogie that needs to be managed. A small existing block of a school, very different from the previous ones we've looked at in terms of it being basically an infill development on the edge of town. In my view, it offers the opportunity for people to look after not only weeds but bushfire risk in this area. I believe it's basically grazing land around this proposal with some other residential places just over the road. So I would indicate my preference for allowing this development. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Murray. Councillor Horrigan, did you wish to speak?
Thanks, Mayor Binks. I concur with Councillor Murray, which is why I thought that it should be called in as well at the time, especially in regards to the rural residential strategy. I believe that a road, sort of defining it, along with no objections from the neighbours, along with consultation from Goulburn Murray Water and not having any objections received. So I support everything else Councillor Murray said as well.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. Would any of the council like to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Haysberg, would you like your right of reply?
Yeah, I'd just like to say this isn't actually in the rural residential zoning. I just want to highlight that, and I don't think that we can just redraw the boundary for that rural residential zone in one council meeting. So I'm sorry that I have to disagree with what the previous councillors have said.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Okay, so councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote.
Can I just make a point of order? Have we got all the councillors on the screen at the moment, Mayor?
Yes, we do, Councillor Murray. If you select your 3-dot options and more, you will be able to select large gallery, which should enable you to see everyone on the screen.
Thank you very much.
Has that fixed your problem?
It has, thank you.
Great. Okay, so councillors, I will put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare the motion carried. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Nadia, for presenting tonight. I'm sorry that this application didn't go in your favour. I know that our officers have spoken to you about our rural residential land use strategy review, which is happening, and I really encourage you to pursue that process and possibly the opportunity to have this part of Strathbogie looked at in that review. It's a way that we can get it into our policy and have a really strong policy position that means that this parcel of land is indeed in a rural residential area and not in the farming zone, which has particular protections around it regarding houses on lots less than that. So I really encourage you to do that, and thank you for taking the time to present to us this evening. Councillors, will now move on to page 6 of the agenda, item 9.1.2, planning permit application number P2021-052. Use of land for a store earth moving equipment on site and cars within existing shedding on lot 29 of plan of subdivision 099517, certificate of title volume 9100 folio 253 Taylor Drive, Mypole. Councillors, I require a motion to defer this item to the 15th of November council meeting due to the fact that several parties with interests in this item are unable to join the virtual meeting. All parties were informed of the need for a deferral yesterday, as we need to ensure a fair and transparent process for the consideration of this item. So can I have a motion to defer this item to the 15th of November 2022, please? Councillor Rayburn?
I so move, Mayor, that this be deferred to the 15th of November.
Thank you, Councillor
As
Rayburn.
requested by the officers.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Hayes-Burke, thank you. I'll put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands? All those in favour, please. And against. Sorry, my squinting face. And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We now move on to page 14 of the agenda, item 9.1.3, planning permit application number P2021-107, multi-lot subdivision and the creation of sewer and drainage easements and the removal of native vegetation at 12 Orchard Street, Violet Town. Director Tingay, may we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, Mayor Binks. This application has been received for a multi-lot subdivision, 19 lots in total. 13 objections or submissions have been received as part of the process, with 2 objections and 1 submission being withdrawn. A thorough assessment of this application was undertaken, and following this assessment, it is recommended that Council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant a permit in accordance with the officer's recommendation. There is a recommendation commencing on page 15 of the agenda for Council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Binks.
Thank you, Director Tingay. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification of the officer regarding this application? Councillor Hayes-Burke? You're on mute, Councillor.
Sorry, trying to navigate my screens. I do have a few questions. There was a few concerns from objectors about there not being enough open space, and I just wanted to ask the officer how the open space contributions applied to this development.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. In relation to this development and more broadly, a person who proposes to subdivide land must make a contribution to council for public open space. This can be a percentage of the value of land, a part of the land, or a combination. Under the Subdivision Act 1988, given council has no scheduled amounts, a maximum amount of 5% can be required. A condition will be included on any planning permit issued requiring a public space contribution. In this case, the proposal has good access to open spaces. Obviously, the Violet Town Rec Reserve isn't far away. The developer will be required to make a contribution to public open space, and in this instance, the contribution is considered appropriate rather than offering land due to the number of lots, the large open space nearby, and that smaller parks may become neglected and are difficult to manage for council moving forward once it's handed over to council. So in this case, a dollar value of contribution is required for public open space.
Thanks, Director Tingay. So will that money go towards ameliorating public space, like in the vicinity?
Yes, it will.
Thanks. I had a few other questions, if you don't mind, Mayor. The tree on the road reserve that is due to be removed, I think it's a sugar gum. Aren't any native vegetation offsets required for that. Could you just explain why, please?
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. So in relation to this particular tree, it is already compromised and it was planted. Planted native vegetation is exempt from planning requirements under clause 5217 of the Strathbogie planning scheme. If the subdivision is approved tonight, we have consented to the removal and works in the road, to the removal, and a works in a road reserve permit is still required, with a condition that has been included in a permit should it be granted under condition 20. And as part of that, it certainly speaks about the details of the removal of any approved street trees in the road reserve, and also includes a dollar amount that must be paid for replacement.
Thanks for that. Just one last question. We are seeking to protect the Avenue of Honour with this particular application, and we're hoping that the style of fencing on the boundary, which abuts the Avenue of Honour, will be open style fencing or something that maintains the character of the Avenue of Honour. So I just want to understand how, in the future, how can we make sure that style of fencing doesn't ever detract from what we're trying to protect.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. So in the proposed permit conditions, condition item 20 certainly speaks about that prior to certification being issued, a detailed landscape plan is to be required. And within that detailed landscape plan that's required to be approved and to the satisfaction of the responsible authority, there is a number C within that details that of boundary fencing or other treatments such as landscaping along the Murchison Violet Town Road and Orchard Street frontages. The land includes a range of fencing styles as to not create a solid fencing treatment along these boundaries. So there is a condition that exists that is proposed, as should Council support that this evening.
Thanks, Director.
Are there any further questions or clarification from the Director? Yes, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Director, can I ask about that item 20 in the conditions 20C, and that condition applies to the developer at this stage. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. To ensure certification, that is correct, and the responsible authority also needs to agree with whatever proposal is put forward. That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Were there any further questions or clarification? No. Council, we have several parties wishing to speak to this item this evening. So our first submission tonight is Rhonda Telnash and David Kitchen. Rhonda and David, if you can please turn on your camera and microphone.
I've turned it on.
Perfect. Yep.
Hello.
Hello. So you have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Yes, I'm speaking on behalf of my husband too. Thank you for the opportunity. We live over the road. We have a myriad of reasons why this cannot be allowed to go ahead. The first one is that it is absolutely overcrowding of a small block that is not in keeping with the rest of Violet Town. Nowhere in Violet Town do we have blocks except for a few blocks of units that are less than a quarter acre, and these are far smaller than that. The flood overlay that you have at the council at the moment, I'm sorry, is incorrect. We know it's incorrect because we've been here for 20 years and we told council about 12 years ago regarding the hazards of allowing houses to be built in Mary's Lane that would cause flooding into our area. And just as we told you it would happen and were derided and ignored last time, blocks flooded in the backyards of Mary's Lane last week. This is in the Age. If you can read it, it says, houses are being built on floodplains. Please get ahead of this problem. We've been here for 20 years. We know what's happened. We have water that comes right from Mary's Lane right up to the boundary of our fence. and putting more an impact of another 19 properties over there will just make that worse. We have no NBN here. We call it, pardon my French, but no bloody network. I work from home. I'm a teacher. I was doing remote learning. The network here is virtually non-existent. It is wireless last mile, and any year 10 physics student can tell you why it doesn't work. Telstra will also admit to you, when you know something about it, as my husband does, he's an expert in the area, that it doesn't work. Another 19 houses there, drawing on the NBN will give us virtually no coverage whatsoever. We still have power outages. We've had them forever. They haven't gone away. We lost power 2 nights last week. It happens over. No, we lost power again this morning, my husband just told me. We're putting another 19 houses on a block in a small country town where we lose power now. That tree removal I'm astonished about in a time of climate change, when we're talking about your own council has a climate emergency, that you're allowing a developer to remove a tree. Surely they are not cowboys and it can go around this tree. We had water restrictions in Violet Town for 3 years. I washed my dishes in a pot because we only get our water to the settling tank at the top of Harris Creek Road there. We had water trucked in for 3 years from Euroa, and we were on the highest restrictions you could get. Now, I know they've all got to have a tank in their backyard. We've got one, but in a drought, and drought will come as surely night follows day after floods, we run out of water very, very quickly. How is our water supply going to allow for 19 more properties? We are not living in Collingwood. We are living in Violet Town. We have moved here, and thank you, Councillor Haysberg, for trying to stick up for us. We moved here to get away from suburbia, and you are allowing suburbia to be right next door. And one last thing, we went to VCAT 12 years ago about a property next door to us. VCAT ordered that their front fence be removed. Guess what? It's still there. Once they get into those houses, as you mentioned, the fencing, Councillor Haysberg, I can guarantee you that no one will make them remove those fences. No one will go back and check that it's done. And my proof is the fence that is still there next door 12 years after VCAT told them they had to remove it. Please do not do this to us. We live in a small country town. We don't need 57 vehicles on that small block of land, assuming a house has 3 cars each. We don't need all that traffic going up and down our street. We don't need our house inundated with flooding that will cause when there's more houses put on one small block. Please just consider us as the small country town we are, and we want to stay. And I hope that Councillor Chris Rayburn would agree with me. Thank you. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Rhonda. Councillors, were there any questions of clarification to Rhonda this evening? Councillor Haysberg, yes.
Can I just ask Director Tingay to clarify how we make sure that the conditions, if they're put on these permits, are endorsed for the benefit of Rhonda?
I'll never be.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. So the conditions are enforced through our enforcement department within council. That is how they are enforced. So once again, any condition that's on there, obviously there is a period of time in which should a permit be granted, that needs to be further information needs to be provided to ensure a statement of compliance. And also we also have, as I said, we have our compliance department to issue the requirements as and when they come available.
Are there any further questions of clarification? Okay, thank you for your presentation, Rhonda. I'll ask that you now please turn off your camera so I can invite the next person to come and present. Thank you. So our next submission is from Sue Watson. Sue, can you please turn on your camera and microphone?
Can you hear me?
I can, Sue. Thank you. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you for allowing me to present. First, open space provision. I assert that the subdivision is large enough and far enough away from the recreation reserve to warrant one lot being made into a park within the boundary. It is not appropriate for the 5% contribution to be monetary. There is no indication how this will benefit the subdivision nor even Violet Town. There is no assurance that it will not go into general revenue or to another town's infrastructure. The officer report on page 47 states a monetary contribution is appropriate for 3 reasons. 1, the number of lots. I say a 19-lot subdivision is a large new residential development in the context of Violet Town's size and neighbourhood. 2, large open space nearby. Page 70 says 132 metres to the Creek Reserve and 355 metres to the Recreation Reserve. The applicant says 600 metres to the Recreation Reserve, which I agree with, but this is from the closest lot. Some will be over 800 metres away. And I measure the Baird Street access to the Creek Reserve as 400 to 600 metres away, and the Creek Reserve's not safe for young kids. I don't think this qualifies as nearby or close proximity, especially when there's no safe footpath along Tulip Street until Lily Street. Clause 56 requires open space with 400 metres safe walking distance for at least 90% of the dwellings. 3, small parks can become neglected and difficult to manage. If the subdivision is supposed to attract a diversity of residents, including parents with young children and older or less able residents, there should be a local park that is easily visible and accessible. The council should be able to maintain it properly given the rates raised by 18 new properties. Another objection is that there are inadequate controls in the planning scheme to protect neighbourhood character. Clause 21.03-7 states that Violet Town remains a vibrant and friendly town and develops in a way that has a positive impact upon the environment whilst retaining its country feel of open spaces, wide streets and historic buildings by ensuring new buildings complement the existing character and encouraging medium density housing designed to contribute to the character of the township. This is the only specific planning scheme clause for Violet Town. It is council's duty to make decisions about new developments that satisfy this clause. I am dismayed that strategies to ensure the objectives, such as a schedule or a design overlay, have not been incorporated into the planning scheme over the past 12 years. The general residential zone is suited to Melbourne suburbia and allows 3-storey or 11-metre dwellings with narrow boundary offsets. There is no protection from this. Building envelopes enforceable through a Section 173 must be used to determine an appropriate design response to the planning scheme, the neighbourhood character study and the 2010 Violet Town structure plan. Building envelopes are the only control that will enable this overarching objective of Clause 32.08 to encourage development that respects the neighbourhood character of the area. Thirdly, the fencing along Murchison Road and Orchard Street boundaries should be a developer responsibility in order to ensure a consistent style abuts the Avenue of Honour. It is not acceptable to allow the individual lot owners to build whatever back fence style, material and colour they choose. This will lead to a motley array as a backdrop to the Avenue of Honour. Open fencing will not be suitable because of views to backyards.
1 minute left. Sorry, Sue, 1 minute left.
Finally, I encourage councillors to read my full submission before making a submission. My perspective is not adequately reflected in the officer's report, nor is this time-restricted presentation. Unfortunately, Strathbogie does not have planning consultation meetings like many other councils. I ask that council reject the application. I request that the current planning scheme review incorporates controls to protect the principles of the 2010 documents. Planning Practice Note 91 states, it is inappropriate to apply the general residential zone to areas where a planning authority seeks to respect the existing single and double-storey character of an area. The neighbourhood residential zone is far more appropriate for Violet Town's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification for Sue? Councillor Horrigan?
Thanks, Mayor Binks. Can I direct the question to Amanda Tingay? I just want to clarify a couple of things. Thank you. Amanda, I noticed Sue said that the fencing on those two roads are up to the individual lot owners and not the developer. Is that correct?
Thank you, Councillor Hourigan. So in proposed condition 20 of this report, it indicates that the developer is responsible for the fencing treatments, and they must be to the satisfactory of the responsible authority. So it does indicate in there, as I said, item 20, condition 20, letter C, the details of boundary fencing and or other treatment such as landscaping along the Murchison Violet Town Road and Orchard Street frontages the land that includes a range of fencing styles so as to not create a solid fencing treatment along these boundaries.
Okay, thank you. And
they're not frontages.
Sorry, I don't think you're allowed to talk anymore. Sorry.
It's inaccurate. They're not frontages. They're backages. They're not frontages.
Amanda Tingay, also, Sue spoke about the residence could possibly be 3 stories high. Is that, I thought we had something about, can you help me with that? Is that correct? They could be?
Thank you, Councillor Hourigan. Any building style levels would be under the building regulations. We don't have any information in terms of the height of the buildings, but anything proposed would be under building regulations at the time.
Okay, and I've got one more question, Mayor Binks, is that okay? Sue also talked about the 2010 strategy. So is that in regards to that parcel is already in a document to be zoned residential, and it was up to 20 blocks originally? Is that the document she's referring to?
So the land, this subject site has already been rezoned. So it was rezoned from farming to general residential zone in around 2016.
Thank you. And that's all my questions. Thanks, Mayor Binks.
Thank you, Councillor Hourigan. Were there any further questions or clarification for either Sue or Director Tingay? No? Okay, so thank you for making your presentation, and I can confirm that we receive all written submissions and councillors read all the written submissions as well. So whilst the submissions around either the objections or submissions that are summarised in the report is only a part of it, we actually receive the full document. So we have read through all objections and submissions relating to all of our applications. So just confirming that for you. Thank you. You're on mute, and I am going to have to ask you. Sorry to leave because I need to invite our next speaker. Thank you. So our next speaker is Anne-Marie Quain, but I'm not sure, Anne-Marie, you mentioned earlier that you were just watching this evening. So if you did want to speak, you can.
No, I don't want to speak. I just wanted to observe the meeting.
Certainly. Okay, thank you, Anne. Okay, so our last speaker on this item is Cameron Ross. Cameron, welcome. Can you please turn on your camera and microphone?
Thank you, Mayor Binks. I'm sorry, I can't get the camera working on my screen. I don't think you can see me.
No, we can't, but that's okay. We can hear you and you are clear. So that's a good start. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation, Cameron.
Yep. So thanks for giving me this opportunity. So we lodged the application last year in June 2021. There's obviously been significant interest in this planning application, both for and against the development. There's obviously a shortage of residential land available in Violet Town, so we hope that this development will alleviate some of those needs for land in the area. In designing the subdivision plan, we've gone through a fair bit of consultation with concerned residents, and in particular the RSL. We actually approached the RSL before we even lodged the application. There's been a number of revisions to the development plan to try and satisfy those concerns that people may have. So more recently, or originally, we had driveway crossovers between the Avenue of Honour. We've ended up changing the application, so we've removed all those driveway crossovers from the Avenue of Honour to preserve it, and there's obviously extensive conditions on there to protect that avenue as well. With the lot layout, we've tried to match in with the street character by making wide lot frontages along Orchard Street and also Murchison Road. What else is there? Clarification with, I suppose, some of the objectors' concerns that I just heard about. With regards to the fencing, obviously in that condition, it talks about the developer having to design the fencing along the Murchison and Orchard Street frontages. So we would design that, but we would also construct it. So it's not, that's all got to be constructed prior to the issue of statement of compliance. So there'll be no issues there. Should also note there's been no objections from any of the authorities with the application. I heard there was some concern with flooding. The GBCMA didn't object to the development either. It's obviously fairly high land. There was some talk of the flooding in Mary's Lane, which there has been a number of smaller lots developed in there, and that's obviously lower lying area, which you can see with the land subject to inundation overlay as well. We've had an arborist report completed for the development, as well as council putting in a report as well. There's no concerns or significant issues with disturbance of those Avenue of Honour trees. And let me see. Yeah, there's in terms of the public open space, generally with these smaller developments, we haven't provided it as it becomes unusable land to a degree because it's so small, being 5%. So generally we find that you're better off putting that money into other existing parklands, which are obviously close by and within walking distance of the development. So, and the other thing was the land obviously got rezoned to general residential zone only in January 2016 by the looks of it. So council obviously undertook
Sorry, Cameron, just letting you know you've just got 1 minute left.
Yep. Yeah, so obviously back then when the land was rezoned, there was some obviously significant amount of studies done on the suitability of that land for development. So we think there shouldn't be any issues in approving a planning permit for this property. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification of either Cameron or to Director Tingay regarding Cameron's presentation? Councillor Andrews?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Cameron. There doesn't appear to be any information regarding the heights of or stories involved with the proposed houses. Can you clarify that for us, please?
There's no application for houses, so this is just a straight subdivision. So any houses would have to meet the requirements of the general residential zone and the building code. So yeah, there's no application for dwellings on the individual lots, but obviously they would have a and as a right to build a dwelling on each of those lots.
Thank you, Cameron. Any further questions or clarification? Councillor Haysbert?
Thanks, Cameron. And you've got requirements to build footpaths as well, because that was one of the other issues that was raised by objectors.
Yes. Yep.
Confirm that. Yeah, surrounding the on the boundaries, on the two boundaries. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And in the estate.
Yeah, in the estate. Yep.
Thanks for that clarification. Any further questions of clarification? No. Okay. Thanks, Cameron. I think you've maybe already muted yourself. Your camera's off. I've just been alerted that we also have Neil Garrett from the RSL who wishes to speak to this item. Neil, would you like to turn on your camera and microphone?
I've got my audio on.
Yep, and I can see you as well. Thank you, Neil.
Okay, thank you.
So you have 5 minutes to make your presentation, and we'll let you know when you're at the 4-minute mark.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to address the council tonight. I'm Neil Garrett, a member of the Violetown RSL, and represent them today. I represent the RSL in all matters regarding the avenues of honour. The subdivision proposal fronts directly upon the 1917-1918 Avenue of Honour Remembrance, which was established to honour the residents of Violetown and District who served overseas in the First World War. As such, it's an important historic and cultural element of the town, the district, the region, and indeed the state. The existence of the Avenue of Honour comprised a major constraint to the development of the land, which unfortunately was not recognised by council, the developer, or Vic Roads at the commencement of the application. This submission places additional information before the council to that provided in the report. We have been a submitter objector to the proposal to subdivide the land in accordance with the first 3 plans lodged with the council due to the effect that what such plans would have on the long-term future of the avenue. The significance of the avenue has last been recognised by council officers, the applicant, but not yet Vic Roads. And the proposal does not affect the avenue because it prohibits access to the allotments with a secondary frontage to the Avenue of Honour. We have 3 concerns, however. In our submission of the final plan, we said, I wish to advise that the group will raise no objection to a subdivision of the land that provides sufficient protection to the Avenue of Honour, which ensures that no access will ever be granted to allotments created over the Avenue of Honour for any purpose, and that a suitable and an appropriate fence and landscaping be established along the road by the developer as part of the subdivisional process. We look forward to receiving details of such a restriction will be enabled. Whilst the recommendation contains, that's a recommendation to the council, contains a condition relating to this, it does not provide for the RSL to be involved in the approval of the landscaping and fencing design to be submitted and provided by the applicant in satisfaction of the condition. We would request that be involved in the process of such approval. We would be prepared to accept the written undertaking from the council that the RSL would be involved in such approval. It's further noted that condition C, which has been noted a couple of times tonight, does not specifically ask for a landscaping plan, but says any plan. The condition is unsatisfactory and needs to be revised to specify that the landscaping must be done. My second point is that we're not convinced that this permit and its conditions provide a watertight means of prohibiting access across the avenue to the lots of the subdivision, as it leaves the opportunity open for such access to be provided in the future. Third point, we are concerned that the revised and final plan has not been referred to the Vic Roads for comment, and the original response to one of the previous plans has been used to describe the attitude of Vic Roads to the proposal. And Vic Roads said at that point, we agree to 2 access points to be provided to Murchison Road. We have been objecting to any access to Murchison Road throughout the proposal, as our interest is solely on the protection of the avenue for all time, not just in respect to this application. Thank you very much. I will send a copy of this submission to the council following this meeting for your information. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Councillors, were there any questions of clarification for either Neil or Director Tingay regarding Neil's presentation? Councillor Haysberg.
Thanks, Neil. And I just want to ask the Director, so I assume the last plan would have been submitted to Vic Roads?
They were consulted, and it won't be in breach of their condition.
Thank you. And I do also just want to ask you the Section 7.3 agreement, just confirming that does actually protect the avenue of honour into the future for anyone who purchases an allotment. They are not able to construct a crossover according to that one section, the Section 7.3 agreement. So that it is protected into the future. Just wanted to confirm that.
Yes, that is correct, Councillor Haysberg. There is a condition there. Sorry, I'm just going through all of the conditions. As you know, there are a lot. But yes, that is true. And anything that should occur or is proposed to be occurred must contain a prior consent from the responsible authority. And there's also specific conditions in the actual conditions around the avenue of honour and remembrance at condition 3.
Thank you, Director Tingay. Councillor Murray, did you have a question or clarification?
I did. I thought Neil Garrett was talking about a landscaping plan not being required, or making a comment that it may not have been required. But I was pretty sure that item 20 of the conditions says that a detailed landscape plan for the whole site must be prepared and implemented, and the detailed plan must be submitted to the satisfaction of the authority, the responsible authority, which is us. Is that correct, Director Tingay?
Yes, Councillor Murray, that is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Tingay. Are there any further questions of clarification? No? Okay, thank you, Neil and company, for presenting. I'll ask you now to turn off your camera. Thank you. Councillors. Oh, Neil, your camera isn't off yet. Can you please turn off your camera? Thank you. Councillors, if there are no further questions or clarification for the Director on this item, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Murray. You're on mute, Councillor Murray.
Sorry, Mayor. I would like to move the recommendation commencing on page 15 of the agenda with the amendment to condition number 2, letter C, to include an additional dot point that boundary fencing treatments along the Murchison, Violetown Road and Orchard Street frontages must be open in nature so as not to create a solid fencing treatment along these boundaries.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Do I have a seconder to Councillor Murray's motion with amendment? Councillor Haysberg.
Maybe, so we let ask a question to the additional motion.
Yes, you can ask a question of clarification for sure.
Thank you. Councillor Murray, Do you mean solid in structure? So, I mean, if they want to grow, say, pitostriums that end up growing through the fence and it creates like a pitostrium wall as an example, is that okay? Or does it need to be open fencing? So it could be just the wire, big cyclone fencing. I'm a bit confused about solid as in it can't be colour bond, can't be timber, or...
The amendment says the amendment replicates item, I think, condition 20, which is already in there, which says that the developer can't construct a solid fence on those boundaries. So the intent of this particular amendment is to transfer or to extend that condition to the 173 agreement that goes with the titles of the blocks that face both Orchard and the Murchison Violet Town Road, so that's replicated, and that would mean that in according to the motion that it cannot be a solid fence.
And
they're people's backyards.
Yeah, and my understanding, Councillor Horrigan, is that the responsible authority is the one that signs off on that fencing design.
Thanks.
Okay, so I had, oh gosh, sorry, something's going on with my screen and it's jumping all over the place. Okay, so I had Councillor Murray move the motion with an amendment, seconded by Councillor Hayes-Burke. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak to the motion?
So just a point of clarification, I'm moving the whole motion, the recommendation, sorry, that we accept the recommendation as amended. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I think this particular recommendation has been a long time in the making and has had lots of inputs from different groups, and I think it's the outcome which best serves the community in the long term. I think Violet Town is a place that is growing and ought to be able to grow further with some more housing being made available in that area. The particular site itself is, I believe, quite well suited to some development. There are some issues about the development of this particular site in a way because of the Avenue of Honour and the restrictions that imposes upon the style of development in this area. But given those restrictions, I think this is the most sympathetic development that is able to be afforded in that area. I think it allows an opportunity for growth. I think it allows an opportunity for some new vibrancy in the town, and I think Violet Town is ready for that particular for some growth in that area. So I would like to support this recommendation. I'd also like to support the amendment because I think the amendment, if I speak to that specifically, the amendment extends the requirement of a sympathetic style of fencing along both of those boundaries, not only to the developer, but also to the landholders who eventually will occupy those sites. So it becomes beholden on those people who occupy those sites to maintain some fencing which is appropriate and sympathetic to the Avenue of Honour and to both those frontages. So I recommend it to councillors. Thank you.
Councillor Murray. Councillor Hayes-Burke, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'll reserve my right, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Would any other councillor like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Dickinson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. I really commend the planner for making all of these conditions. However, for me, it's not enough. I'm sorry, I cannot support this motion. I cannot support anything that doesn't respect 100% the soldiers who fought for our country, and this to me would be taking something away from them. We need to continue to respect and honour our soldiers who have fought for our country and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Would any councillor like to speak for the motion? Councillor Hurrican.
Thanks, Mayor Binks. I would like to speak for the motion. If you don't build residential houses in a residential zone, then where do you build them? We just had an application prior to this that we weren't allowed to build in a farming zone. So for me, in 2016, when it was rezoned from farming to residential, well, the applicant, in my eyes, have done all that they can. You know, first of all, they submitted a plan, and RSL, you know, raised concerns, so they changed their plan. You know, and then you know, the planners, you know, weren't so sure about it, and the plans changed. So now we're talking about fencing to be sympathetic. Now we're putting in 173 agreements to make sure that we're not running over the root system of these trees. You know, this is someone has brought this parcel of land, and you know, we've got the RSL, you know, that have planted on it, etc. And now this same person's trying to work with them and say, look, we don't want to damage them. We want to work with you. We want to do it. And I thought previously that the RSL had withdrawn their objection. So I was a little bit shocked that they came and then spoke in a different light tonight with it. I believe that the conditions are detailed and they're thorough and they've been worked on for so long. You know, and I think the officers have done a really great job. And I speak about this a lot, but it's something I'm so passionate about. I mean, we have a housing crisis. We have the Mornington Peninsula Shire at their council meeting screaming out to the state government, asking to help with their housing crisis because they have homeless people on the streets. We need to, as a regional community, help contribute to help housing people. We can't do that if we're not developing our residential zones when we can. So I am speaking for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hurrican. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Rayburn.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate all the objectors who have come forward tonight to tell us what they're objecting about. One of the main reasons I am supporting this is because in all our discussions around the Shire is what Councillor Horrigan just talked about, opportunity for people to be able to build buildings which can accommodate all facets of our communities. You can have small blocks which allows people to come up who are single owners or senior families or young families to start off with building a home and then going out into the quarter-acre, half-acre, 1 acre lots. This gives an opportunity in Violet Town. I understand that the people are saying it's not the suburban area of Collingwood or Richmond or wherever it is, but we need to have an opportunity where we have a different facet of our community living in different areas. And this, to me, is exactly what we're requiring. I understand the frustration of the people living opposite with the fences coming back onto looking across at their place, and you're going to be looking into the backyard. But because of the tight restrictions we've got on the memorial trees for the people who have lost their lives for us, I believe this is the best outcome for all, and I believe that is the way it should be, and I thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Haysberg, would you like to use your...
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I also just want to say thanks to the objectors for speaking and for the ones that submitted who couldn't make it tonight. I can see that one of the main concerns is lot sizes, but unfortunately for them this is a general residential zone, and I do think that the lot sizes are sympathetic with the town as they offer a variation of lot sizes, and I think that does help alleviate the pressures that we're facing with the housing crisis. as Councillor Hourigan and Councillor Rayburn stated. On one hand, I would definitely like to see all the houses actually facing Orchard Street and the other boundary, Murchison Road, because I think that that would be probably more in keeping with the character of the town. However, we were told by the RSL and many other objectors that wasn't going to be suitable, and so the developers come back with another plan for the development that I think really is going to protect the Avenue of Honour. The boundary fencing will hopefully be something which we've allowed for in the landscape planning of shrubbery and some timber fencing potentially. I note that the officers have protected as much as possible the native vegetation while it's deemed lost. There are extra controls in place before residents of this new development can actually remove the vegetation, which I'm grateful that they've gone to an extra step in doing that. And I believe that it is close enough to significant open space, and I think Barlowtown's lucky to have the great recreational reserve, and I hope that the new members of the community who move into this this development are able to enjoy that space as well. So I mean, yeah, on one hand, the planning scheme isn't perfect, but I think that this does get the best outcome for the community. I mean, water authorities have approved this dwelling. There is adequate water. It's not in a floodplain, and that there will be footpaths into town. Sorry, not all the way into town, but potentially this is something that needs to go on our capital works list of items that needs to be constructed. A footpath from along the main road into town. And we're grateful to the developer for commencing the footpaths around the development. I think I've covered off everything. I mean, I do think it's a crying shame that the tree on Orchard Street has to be removed, but I hope that that will be combated with significant landscaping within the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. And Councillor Murray, would you like your right of reply?
I'll be brief, I think, Mayor, because we've had lots of discussion about this particular topic, and I think Councillor Haysbert has covered off most of the items that I was going to talk about, other than to say that I think this proposed development will help meet the current and future demands in the community for housing, as we have talked about, and I thank both Councillor Rayburn and Councillor Haysbert for bringing up that topic about housing and our shortage of housing and a lack of affordability for some residents. And I mean, Barlowtown is not immune to that. You know, there is a lack of available housing up there, and we need people to be able to have housing so that they can expand the opportunities in that area. I think this is a compromise, as people have talked about. It's true, but I think it's a very suitable compromise, and I don't think it will detract from the area. I think it will be sympathetically developed. I'm convinced that the conditions that are listed there will assist that, and I thank the planners for all their hard work on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Okay, councillors, I'll put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. And can I just thank all our submitters this evening? Thank you for those both for and against. I'm sorry if it didn't go in your favour this evening, but yeah, please understand that we worked really hard to get a suitable outcome on a really challenging site with some challenging, you know, conflicting sort of uses in the area. So thank you, and you're welcome to stay on. Otherwise, you're welcome to leave the meeting and continue watching it through our live stream. I'll now move to item page 43, item 9.1.4, planning applications received and planning applications determined 1st to the 30th of September 2022. Director Tingay, may we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, Mayor Binks. This report notes that there were 9 new planning applications received and 14 planning permit applications determined during the period of the 1st to the 30th of September 2022. There's a recommendation on page 43 for Council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Binks.
Thank you, Director Tingay. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification of the officer regarding this item? No? Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Dickinson.
I'd like to move the motion on page 43. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Murray. Thank you, Councillor Murray. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Dickinson?
No.
Councillor Murray?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No. Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? Oh, Councillor Hourigan? No, you didn't mean to put up your hand in 2 ways. No. Okay. Thank you. And I declare that carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I need to put my hand up.
Right. Yes. So
can I just call for a 5-minute toilet break if everyone's happy to do that?
Sure. So we need to adjourn the meeting. So can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please? Councillor Rayburn.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move to the meeting be adjourned for 5 minutes for public convenience. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Hourigan. And can I have a show of hands? All those in favour? Thank you, and I declare that carried. Okay, so I'm just looking at a clock. We will be back at 7:55. Is that just gives us it's a little bit more than 5 minutes, but I'm just going to call it on a whole number rather than an in between one. So you may see some councillors or officers turn off their cameras, and please just be patient as we get through. We do have an enormous agenda this evening with a lot of items, and noting that everyone is pretty exhausted as well, given the week we've all had. So thank you for allowing us this. So it's just gone 7:55, just waiting for Councillor Dickinson and Councillor Andrews to rejoin us. Councillor Dickinson is with us. And here comes Councillor Andrews. Thank you very much. All good. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thanks for public for your patience waiting. So we now move on to page 45 of the agenda, item 9.2.1, application for sponsorship Shire Remembrance Exhibition Longwood. Councillor Murray, I believe you declared a conflict of interest with this one. I'll ask you now to log off and leave the meeting. And we will alert you when you can rejoin. So I can confirm that Councillor Murray has left the meeting at 7:56. Director Tingay, can we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor Binks. Council received an application for sponsorship from the Longwood Community Centre to assist with the delivery of the Shrine of Remembrance exhibition, Changed Forever Legacies of Conflict, sharing stories of migrants from war-torn countries and veterans from overseas service. Following an assessment, it is recommended that Council support the application request in full for an amount of $2,000. There's a recommendation commencing on page 45 for Council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Binks.
Thank you, Director Tingay. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification for the officer regarding this item? No. In that case, councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Horrigan?
Thanks, Mayor Binks. I'd like to move a motion that we adopt the recommendation on page 45 of the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan.
And 46. Sorry.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Dickinson. Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Horrigan?
I'd just like to speak in general. Yeah, I would like to speak to the motion. I love sponsoring events like this. The Shire of Remembrance, touring exhibition tells stories of migrants from war-torn countries and veterans of overseas service, presented beside those of recent veterans of overseas service in the Australian Defence Force. That's what's been written in the report. And I think it's really great to be able to showcase that. And I'm very proud to, if the motion is passed, to be a sponsor of this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. Councillor Dickinson, would you like to speak to the motion? You're on mute, Councillor Dickinson.
Sorry, I support those remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No. Okay, councillors, I'll put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands? All those in favour, please. And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now ask Councillor Murray to rejoin the meeting. And we'll just have to have a bit of patience whilst he reconnects. And we have Councillor Murray back in the virtual room. So we now move to page 51 of our agenda, item 9.2.2, application for sponsorship Euro Music Festival. Councillor Hayes-Burke, I believe you have a conflict of interest. If you can please log off. Yeah, I need you to log off. And she's now left the meeting. Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. So we'll now get a summary of the report from Director Tingay, please.
Thank you, Mayor Binks. An application has been received for sponsorship from the Euroa Music Festival to support the Euroa Music Festival that's to be held in November. This report recommends approval of the sponsorship application for an amount of $3,000 rather than the $5,000 requested. This partial funding is recommended due to the demonstrated demand for the sponsorship events program and to be consistent with other similar applications that have been supported by council so far this year. There is a recommendation commencing on page 51 for council's consideration. Thank you. Mayor Binks.
Thank you, Director Tingay. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification for the officer regarding this item? Councillor Murray?
Director Tingay, I believe we've also sponsored another aspect of this event with an additional amount of money for the Music Prelude event, which is held just at the beginning of this music festival. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Murray. Yes, that is correct. We did fund the Euroa Chamber of Commerce for sponsorship for the Prelude event. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you for that clarification. Any further questions or clarification? No? Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move the recommendation as listed on page 51 to support the Euroa Music Festival with $3,000 sponsorship application.
Thank you, Councillor Murray.
Right.
Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Dickinson. Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Murray?
Just briefly to say that this is a great event last year and very popular, and it was run under much duress last year, and I'm hoping that this one will be slightly easier, although we have had now a flood event, which makes it a bit tricky. But nevertheless, I expect that this one will be well attended, and it will promote the town and the region, and I'd like to see it become a success and continue in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Dickinson, would you like to speak to the motion?
I just support those remarks from Councillor Murray. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We will now ask Sally to come back into the room, and I ask for your patience as that occurs. Hello and welcome back, Sally. Okay, so we now move to page 57 of the agenda, item 9.2.3, application for sponsorship, Nagambie Lakes Community House Christmas Carols Event 2022. Director Tingay, may we have a summary of the event, of the item, please?
Thank you, Mayor Binks. Yes, as you've alluded to, an application for sponsorship has been received from the Nagambie Lakes Community House to support the delivery of the 2022 Christmas Carol event. It is recommended that council support a sponsorship amount of $3,000, a reduced amount from their requested $5,000 to be consistent with similar applications that have been approved by council this financial year due to the demand of the sponsorship program. Thank you, Mayor Binks.
Thank you, Director Tingay. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification regarding this item? If not, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the recommendation on page 57 of the agenda be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Do I have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Dickinson. Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Andrews?
Thank you, Mayor. The Nagambie Lakes Community House does a lot of good work within the wider Nagambie community, and if we can assist them to put on a positive event like this, I think that should be commended. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Dickinson, would you like to speak to the item?
I agree with what Councillor Andrews just said. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Horrigan.
Thanks, Mayor Binks. This event is going to be so welcome now after everything that the Ngambie community has gone through. It's a family-friendly live music event that's celebrated in Ngambie. It was very successful last year, and it attracts locals, visitors and tourists to the event, and they've even got the Ngambie Kinder and Preschool and the local primary schools involved in it. So I'm very excited to be sponsoring an event like this, especially after what the community has gone through. I think they'll really appreciate, and everyone loves some Christmas carols, I'm sure. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? No? Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to the vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. And we now move to page 62 of the agenda, item 9.2.4, Euroa Health Funding Advocacy. Director Tingay, can we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, Mayor Binks. Euroa Health's Bush Nursing Home status is recognised as a private facility, and although it does receive some limited government funding in the form of grants, it does not receive recurrent funding to support its operations. This is primarily due to its private status, despite it being a registered charity operating as a not-for-profit, which returns all money and benefits to the community. Unless adequate ongoing funding is provided by the state government, Euroa Health will be forced to close the acute services wards, and community members will need to travel to larger regional areas for acute medical services and hospitalisation. Euroa Health is currently undertaking a large-scale advocacy campaign to lobby for recurrent state government funding for the hospital's acute care services. It is recommended on page 63 of the agenda that Council support Euroa Health in their advocacy for this recurrent state funding, and also write to local state members of parliaments and candidates for the forthcoming election, promoting their campaign, Euroa Health's campaign, through various communication platforms. Thank you, Mayor Binks.
Thank you, Director Tingay. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification for Director Tingay? No? In that case, councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Hayes-Burke.
Thank you. Can I please move the motion on page 63 of the agenda?
Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Dickinson. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Hayes-Burke?
Yes, I'm really strongly in support of this, because it feels like as a rural community, we're constantly losing access to health services when compared to the city. And I think it would be a real loss if Euroa had to close the hospital there. It's a real public asset. I just want to also note that it does provide access to public patients, and that's why they're seeking funding, so that they can continue to do that for our community. And I really hope that that the government can provide some funding. I don't think it's much in the scheme of things. It's in the scheme of the health budgets, it's around 1.5 million of annual funding that's being requested of the state.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Councillor Dickinson, would you like to speak to the motion? You're on mute, Councillor Dickinson.
Supporting those same remarks from Councillor Hayes-Burke. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horrigan.
Thanks, Mayor Binks. So I'm glad that this item's been tabled. So Euroa Health has been held back because they've been deemed a private hospital. So this is because they were originally community-funded bush nursing hospitals. So our local health services are held back because they were community-driven hospitals. So it's completely unacceptable. Our health service we need to receive the adequate funding. I mean, we're a small town. It's just sad that we've even gotten to this point that we have to table this. So, you know, along with the rest of the urging of the state government, this needs to be tabled and this needs to be taken seriously. We can't be held back because our hospital was originally community driven. I think it's appalling. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Horrigan. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I'd like to say some words.
Thank you, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to reinforce what Councillor Horrigan has talked about. We're an ageing community here in Euroa. We have one of the oldest communities on average in the state, and yet we have a hospital which lacks the support from the state government that it needs. We're 50 kilometres away, north, south, and west to our next hospitals, and we don't have the services that we need in this community that our residents need. And I think the state government needs to step up, and so does the opposition when they're making announcements about health funding. They all need to step up a bit and recognise the dire situation that we find ourselves in Euroa. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? In that case, councillors, I will put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And to declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to page 69 of our agenda, 9.2.5, School Crossing Supervision Program. Director Tingay, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor Binks. The School Crossing Supervision Program is led and funded by the Department of Transport. Local government for many years has been delivering this service on behalf of the state. This is undertaken by an informal agreement. Over time, the financial allocation from the state has dwindled, and the gap that local governments are required to fund has continued to grow. Given this is an issue across the Victorian local government sector, the City of Monash is coordinating an advocacy campaign to seek the restoration of funding for this critical service. In summary, the objectives of the campaign are to seek that the Victorian government commit to fully fund the delivery of the school crossing program, request that the Victorian government undertake an urgent review and reform of the current school crossing supervisor model, and engage with community stakeholders to increase awareness and support of the reduced and lack of financial support for councils to provide school crossing supervisor services. There is a small financial amount requested from the City of Monash to join the campaign of $1,500. It is becoming unsustainable for council to continue to take on the burden of the financial cost shift from the state government for this extremely important service. There is a recommendation commencing on page 70 of the agenda, which looks at four recommendations, obviously around recognising that child safety is and remains the primary consideration associated with the school crossing supervisor program, joining the campaign, ensuring that the campaign as part of it, whilst being fully funded, that also advocates that it is fully indexed, so that includes CPI each year, and also to receive a further report in March 2023 council cycle around a range of options for the program moving forward. Thank you, Mayor Binks.
Thank you, Director Tingay. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification regarding this item? No. Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Hayes-Burke.
Could I please move the motion on page 70 of the agenda? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Do I have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Murray. Thank you. Councillor Hayes-Burke, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thanks, officers, for bringing this report, and I also want to say that it's great that the City of Monash is starting this advocacy campaign, because this really is such a critical service for our community, for our young people, to keep our roads safe. And it's just not good enough that the state government is providing less than adequate funding for a service that is basically in their remit. And we help them achieve that service, but we are not compensated adequately for that. I believe that they know that the money they're providing is less than adequate, because they've been threatening to do a review into the school crossing supervision program, but we're yet to see that review after many years. So I think, yeah, this is probably well overdue, and I'm happy to support this being fully funded by the state government.
Councillor Haysbert. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, thank you, Mayor, just to support what Councillor Haysbert has said. It's not really about the discontinuation of a service here. It's really about ensuring a long-term survival of the service moving forward. We recognise how important this service is, but it is really important that we advocate for its full and proper funding and indexed funding at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Dickinson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think it's a good motion, and it's yeah, and I support it. And I think it's really important for our ratepayers to understand that this is not abandoning the children. We will always stand by the children, and the school crossing will continue no matter what the decisions made on this. So whilst we are seeking state government assistance, or taking it over, or the Department of Transport taking it over, the bottom line is we won't abandon the kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No. Okay, councillors, I'll put the motion to a vote. Can I please show hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. And moving on to page 78 of our agenda, item 9.3.1, Tree Management Plan, Urban and Rural Strategies and the Tree Management Policy. CEO Salomon, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. In August 2022, Council endorsed the draft Tree Management Plan, Urban and Rural Strategies for community consultation. The period of consultation is now complete, and a consultation summary is attached to this report. Council's Tree Management Plan documents strategies Council has in place to ensure longevity and quality of the trees within our urban and rural environments, as well as the risk management framework that will be applied to mitigate risk to community, such as is reasonable and practical. Please also note, councillors, that should this tree management plan be adopted this evening, officers will commence developing a procedures manual to operationalise this strategy. There is a recommendation on page 78 for your consideration. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, CEO Salomon. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification of the CEO at this time? No. Okay, councillors, we did have two. One is apology, but so I have a submitter this evening, and our first submission tonight is from Rob Jamieson. Rob, are you able to turn your camera and microphone on, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Binks.
So you have 5 minutes to make your presentation, and you'll get a warning at the 4-minute mark.
Thank you very much. I've spent a fair bit of time looking through the plan, and it's from the onset, I see it asking community to actually review the document rather than consult with the community. So I've reviewed the document. What wasn't clear to me, and has now just become clear to me from the CEO, that there is no procedures that are set in place to support this document at the moment. And most of my submissions that I've put in alludes to measurements that are required for this plan to be successful and successful in providing the service to the community and the safety of the community. But allow me to just take the liberty of going through a couple of areas that I perhaps don't agree with or asking questions of the plan. And one is of the definition arborist. One would assume that in selecting contractors to perform duties within the council, that perhaps the council would actually apply the criteria of the ISO accreditations or quality accreditations. And I'm not sure whether council's got it or not. ISO 9001, they would select qualified people under that accreditation to provide that service to council. And if that's the case, it should be actually documented in the plan. The second point that I'd like to make is the Rural Trees Gazetted Public Road. And a number of you on council know that this is an area that I've focused on for some time. And it continues that, and I'd like all councillors to have a look at this very, very closely, but every document that the council puts together and quotes section 107, that they don't actually put the complete copy of the Act in there. They actually neglect part of that Act or the section 107, and I would implore you to actually fully document that section 107 in all the documents that council put together, and I'll allow you to read that, and I've detailed that for your inspection or for your consideration. The other area that I'd like to also point out is 13.2 rural areas, and the council has stated there that they clear the roads by clearing and pushing trees to road reserves for biodiversity and habitat when trees fall outside what is deemed to be the envelope. I see this as a conflicting statement when the council was obligated under section 43 of the Country Fire Act 1958 to take all practical steps to prevent the occurrence of fires on and minimise the danger of the spread of fires on the road under its care of management. And I see pushing excess trees and vegetation onto the road reserve is increasing the fuel load and therefore does not minimise the danger of spreading a fire. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration. There's a lot there that I've made comment on, and a lot of it is to do with measurements, and I think that's absolutely imperative. But one area that, or just to finish up, that I'd like to perhaps give some consideration to, if you could give consideration to, and it's table 1, page 19, and it's called, it's in the risk management framework that the CEO talks about there, and it's a target range for property pedestrian vehicles. And I question whether that's actually the right representation, and it goes to the third column of that. I think it's the third column. I can't bring it up now that I'm online, but and it talks about vehicles, and it talks about vehicles as a unit, and it deems those to be a count number for that to go into the risk assessment. My thinking is that within those vehicles you have people, and so we've actually got the risk framework here to protect people and not to protect vehicles. So, for example, you could have one tree or that engage or fall on a car or a vehicle. It could have one person in it, could have 3 people in it, could have a family of 5 in it, or it could be a school bus. So therefore, I just question whether that takes that into consideration when you are concluding your risk profile or risk assessment of that particular incident.
Excuse me, Rob, you've got 30 seconds left.
And that pretty well concludes. One area I'd like the council to consider is an app, to link into an app called Snap, Send and Solve, which gives a good communication for the public into the council. Other councils are using it, and I'd like you to consider using it.
Thank you, Rob. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for either Rob or the CEO regarding Rob's presentation this evening? No. I'd just like to clarify with CEO Solomon, we do, in our employment of arborists, they are the accredited arborists. Is that correct? And that's just not stated as such in this plan? Is it that? Can you just clarify that for me, please?
Through you, and thank you, Mayor. Yes, you're quite correct. We employ people who have the required qualifications and experience to undertake such important work. Thank you. We do not have the skills within house, and we seek contractors with those skills.
Thank you for
and
that.
Qualifications.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillors, are there any further questions regarding this? No. I understand a lot of your queries relate to the I can't even say that at the moment. I'm sorry.
Implementation.
Implementation. That's a much easier word. Thank you. Implementation. The no, I'm not even going to try. Sorry, it's been a huge week. Once we have to approve the plan first for that to occur. So yeah. Councillors, if there's no further questions, Rob, I'll ask you to turn off your camera and microphone, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Now, our next submission was going to be from Shirley Saywell. However, Shirley has had to apologise due to having to attend a last-minute emergency meeting, so she sends her apologies. So, councillors, with no further submitters on this item, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Haysbert?
Can I please move the motion on page 78 of the agenda?
Certainly. And is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Rayburn. Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Councillor Haysbert, would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, so this did go out for the public to give us feedback on, and we received quite a few submissions around tree planting and the need for that to occur in the Shire, and we are aware of that, and we know that the tree canopy isn't great in some of our rural towns, and our aim is to increase that. However, this this policy is really around the management of trees that are already there. It's not around increasing the canopy. Although once we do plant more trees, they will become part of this policy. And I just want to commend officers on all the work that's gone into this. I mean, it's been a long time coming, and I think it's great because we know, well, we are a rural shire, so we have a significant amount of trees. They do pose a risk, and we really need to, we're being very transparent with the community about how we're managing that risk. And that's why I think something like this is important to show the community that we're doing our best to protect their safety and also looking after our trees, which are our assets. And I think that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. Councillor Rayburn, would you like to speak to the item?
No, I'd just like to support Councillor Haysbert's comments there, and also compliment the CEO on bringing this forward back in December 2020 when we went through our all our different reports, internal reports we found, and we didn't have a tree management plan, and it scared the hell out of myself and the CEO at the time. So I complimented her on bringing this forward to the Risk and Audit Committee, and now putting it out to the community for comments. And now we eventually, it has now become part, if it gets passed tonight, part of our policies. So it does take a little while for policies to come about. It's nearly 2 years to bring this to the fore. So just to let the community realise that it does take a lot of work and a lot of time for officers and also community representatives to bring something together. So I thank everybody for it.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No. In that case, councillors, can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, Rob, for your submission. You can either stay in line and continue watching here, or you can continue watching offline, and I'm sure we will keep you updated as to the progress of the implementation, etc., as things progress. And as per all of our policies, they will be reviewed on a schedule that will be part of the policy. So it's the first time we've had a policy like this. It's an opportunity to see how it works, and we, as we all do with all our policies, we review them and update them, and they get improved with use. So yeah, it will form part of that suite of policies. We now move on to page 78 of the agenda, item 9.3.2, tender for contract number 22-23-11, footpath and curb works, Bury Street, Euroa. CEO Solomon, can we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. This report is before Council to approve the awarding of a tender for footpath and curb works along Bury Street, following a comprehensive tender process. The project is required to make the necessary widening and extension of the curb along Bury Street, as well as ensuring that we have a continuous pathway. It forms part of Council's adopted capital works program for the financial year 2022-23. There is a recommendation, councillors, on page 89 for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Solomon. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for the CEO regarding this? No. Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Hourigan.
Thanks, Mayor Binks. I'd like to move a motion that we adopt the recommendation on page 89 of the agenda, please.
Thank you, Councillor Hourigan. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Rayburn. Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Hourigan?
Thanks, Mayor Binks. This is a very important infrastructure within the Euroa Township. So Bury Street, there is, along Bury Street, you have the connection of St. John's, then you have the Euroa swimming pool, then at the end of that street you have the Euroa's Good Start childcare and the Euroa High School. So anyone or any parents, I suppose, that drop one child off and then, you know, make their way to the other will find that the footpath is extremely uneven. It doesn't even connect to the road. I don't really understand why it would fall short of a road, but you end up going through dirt or grass, etc. And it's really important and passionate for me to make sure that our footpaths are for all abilities as well. So I know that there's a few different people in town with all different challenges, and they're really struggling on our footpaths. So I think this is a really great step forward to help with that connection. Also, Bury Street, whilst I know it's not directly connecting to Euroa Health, but they also struggle to try and get into Binney Street. So now they will be able to cross the road and come down it, and they'll be able to connect safely, using the footpath on Bury Street. So this is a project that's a long way in the making. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. Councillor Rayburn, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. I'd just like to support Councillor Horrigan's comments and talk about linkages. This is about setting up linkages throughout your town so people can move about at all times with no fear of any problems of falling over, tripping over, not being able to move their electrical wheelchairs or even their personal wheelchairs or prams or anything like that. It's about linking people with people and areas to areas. So I can really support this and look forward to being completed.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And to declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Page 96 of the agenda, item 9.3.3, tender for contract number 2023-2223-6-2223 road reseal program. CEO Solomon, can we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. As part of the Strathbogie Shire Council's approved budget, selected municipal roads require resealing to improve safety, increase the life of our roads, and to lower ongoing maintenance costs and decrease the frequency of maintenance activities, albeit saying that that's probably a challenge in the current climatic conditions and floods we're currently experiencing. However, under this contract, it's planned to reseal selected segments of 18 council roads, which were prioritised following an assessment undertaken earlier this year. The resealing work also includes reinstatement of line marking, installation of raised reflective pavement markers as required. Following the extensive tender process and evaluation, there is a recommendation on page 96 for councillors' consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Solomon. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for the CEO regarding this item? Councillor Rayburn.
Just clarifying, if I may, CEO, any of the roads which we were looking at doing our reseal being damaged under the flood which we've just had?
Through you, Mayor, at this stage, Councillor Rayburn, we are just commencing a process of assessing all of the road conditions, bridges, culverts, etc., post the flood event, and certainly should any of these sections of road be damaged by flood water to the point that a reseal is not warranted and it actually needs a rehabilitation, we will certainly not proceed with those works, and we will amend the contract to alternate roads accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Solomon. Any further questions or clarification? No? Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I wish to move the motion as listed on page 96 of the council agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Horrigan. Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Murray?
Briefly, just to say that these 18 stretches of road which have been identified are in need of resealing. We have lots and lots of roads that are in need of resealing, and it's one of our major priorities moving forward, particularly after recent events. But even before that, roads are very important to our community, and we need to get on with these jobs and get the resealing done.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Horrigan, would you like to speak to the item? No? Okay. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? Okay, councillors, I'll put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands? All those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Now moving to page 103 of the agenda, item 9.3.4, tender for contract number 22-23-107, pavement rehabilitation program 22-23. CEO Salomon, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. This report is for our pavement rehabilitation program, and just for clarity for our community, this is about road pavement rehabilitation as part of our 2022-23 capital works program, really just ensuring that our roads assets are maintained to a safe and quality level. We have a number of roads to be rehabilitated, and certainly, again, as we mentioned earlier, flood events have certainly exacerbated the need for this. So following extensive tender advertisement and evaluation process, we have a recommendation for councillors' consideration on page 103 of tonight's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Salomon. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification regarding this item of the CEO? No? Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Rayburn? And state what your motion is. I'm tired, sorry.
You're not the only one, I can tell you.
No, I know.
I'd like to move the recommendation, which is printed on page 103. The council goes out the tender process for the contractor 2-23-07 pavement rehabilitation program.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Hayes-Burke. Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Rayburn?
Thanks, Mayor. I'd just like to say, yes, we're some of the roads, if you look along on the list there on page 104, have been roads within the urban area which need to be upgraded. So our local residents have safe access along their roads, but it's not just all about being the urban area. That's all about the Shire. And once again, as I asked the question before about reseals, this probably will also be re-looked at probably since the last rain event. So, because I think some of the roads here have been damaged, so it could be a different story when we get our full report from the staff on exactly what was to happen to our road system.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Councillor Hayes-Burke, would you like to speak to the motion? Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? Okay, councillors, I'll put the motion to vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving to page 110 of the agenda, 9.3.5, Municipal Association of Victoria October State Council meeting motion submission for increased essential road maintenance funding. CEO Salomon, may we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, and we're keeping on the same theme tonight of the importance of our road network here and making sure that it is in a good condition as we can. We committed as a council to providing a safe environment for residents and the travelling public. However, our road infrastructure, as many of our community will be well aware, has sustained a significant increase of reactive road maintenance and repairs over recent years. And this has been primarily due to 3 years of La Nina activity, which has seen increased rainfall, which in turn has created a higher volume of maintenance activity on our roads and drainage network, more than we would currently expect in any one period of time. and the current funding arrangements are not sustainable. And this report and attached motion to the MAV calls for urgent and sustained government funding intervention to address this issue, particularly for small rural shires where there is limited ability to generate funds other than through rates. It really does have an incredible impact on our capacity to sustain and maintain our extensive road network. Thank you, Mayor. Oh, sorry, I should admit, there is a recommendation on page 110 that Council note the notice of motion calling for urgent and sustained state government funding intervention for road maintenance. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Salomon. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification from the CEO regarding this item? No. Councillors, I'm just going to foreshadow that I do not usually speak to motions, but I will be speaking to this motion. So I just and I'll speak last to the motion. I just want to foreshadow that. Councillors, if there's no questions or clarification to the officers, can I please have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Rayburn.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the motion on page 110 be passed and ratified by the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Do I have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Hayes-Burke. Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Councillor Rayburn, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I would actually, because this is about looking after our ratepayers. It's about looking after our community and it's looking after each other. One of the main issues that we have in this Shire is that we always get told we're the highest rated Shire in Victoria. And the reason why we're one of the highest rated is because back in 2012, the council made a decision to upgrade all the culverts and everything within the Shire and even upgrade a lot of the road surfaces. But as is written in this report, it is stated that the last 3 years we've been belted by La Nina, and even the Indian Ocean, I can't remember what it's called now, bringing more moisture up from the northern west part of Australia. So we're in a real perfect storm at the moment where we're just getting so much moisture, and asphalt with water under it just lifts, and culverts, when you get too much water, just gets washed away or gets eaten away on the edges. So we as a small Shire don't have the money, the resources and the capability to maintain all this network. If we're in a metropolitan area, we'd only have about 150 kilometres of network, but because we've got such a big, vast area of 3,303 square kilometres, and then in that, we've got a population of about 11,000, which equates to about 3.1 persons per square kilometre. So it's a big ask of our community to keep funding for other people who don't live in our Shire to be able to move around our area and open up for all transport. So I really recommend this, and I congratulate the Mayor on her win on last Friday.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Councillor Hayes-Burke, would you like to speak to the motion?
I just wanted to commend you on pushing this because, yeah, as Councillor Rayburn has already stated, it's incredibly important. So I'll let you speak.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? Okay, so breaking with tradition, I will speak to the motion as I presented this motion to the Municipal Association of Victoria's State Council meeting, which is our meeting of all councils which work across Victoria around our advocacy platform and other matters relating to local government. The motion came about, so it was developed obviously before the flood event that we had, and it was acknowledging that, you know, already in the conditions that we've seen in the last 3 years, we've seen an absolute massive increase into the need for the maintenance to maintain our road network has just gone through the roof. And as both the CEO and Councillor Rayburn have indicated, in a small rural shire in a rate capped environment, the growth in in that expenditure just far exceeds what we will ever be able to fund, alongside of all the other expectations that we have as a council to provide services for. So it's just asking the state government to really step in and provide adequate funding and ongoing funding that enables us to have a suitable and a safe road network for not only our community but everyone that comes to visit this beautiful part of Victoria and or travels through for work or comes here for whatever reason, that we are able to do that. And when this motion was tabled at the State Council in meeting, I had, I think, about 15 different councils offer to second it, anywhere from, our neighbours in Shepparton and Murrindindi, all the way down to Bayside in the city. So there was a real understanding that this is needed, and it was passed unanimously at that meeting. So there is a real understanding from the local government network and sector that there is an absolute need for this. In the Victoria and particularly in the rural and regional shires where we just don't have the capacity to keep up with the current need. So councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. So now moving on to page 116 of the agenda, and this is item 9.4.1, review of our purchasing card policy. Director Bray, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, in front of you tonight are quite a few policies that we've been reviewing in recent times. The first one up tonight is the purchasing card policy, which is basically the credit card policy, which was first developed in 2019. We've undertaken a review of that policy. It is actually working quite well. So we've only made some minor changes, including defining more clearly some roles and responsibilities in accordance with our new policy template. We submitted the policy along with a number of others to a special meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee that was held on the 7th of October. The committee made a couple of suggestions, minor suggestions in terms of some improvements, further improvements to the policy, and those have been reflected in the policy that is before you tonight. There's a recommendation, councillors, on page 116 to note and adopt the updated policy, and to also place the updated policy on the council's website, and also inform the community of the new policy in social media and in our newspapers. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Bray. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification regarding this item? No? Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Hourigan.
Thanks, Mayor Binks. I'd like to move a motion that we adopt the recommendation on page 116 of the agenda tonight.
Thank you. And can I have a seconder for the motion, please? Councillor Dickinson, thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Hourigan?
No, thanks. That's fine.
Councillor Dickinson, would you like to speak to the motion? Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No. I shall just speak to it, seeing as no other councillor wished to speak to it. This was reviewed in our Audit and Risk Committee, and again, it's just, really ensuring that we get all these processes right, and we ensure that these cards and there were some adjustments that were made through that process, which I think will ensure greater transparency and appropriate use of cards in all circumstances that they need for. So I just really thank the Audit and Risk Committee for their contribution to the process of reviewing this policy. Councillors, I'll put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Page 120 of the agenda is 9.4.2, review rates and charges collection and hardship policy. Director Bray, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. This is the second of the policies that we place before you tonight. It's also gone through the Audit and Risk Committee as well for their review. The hardship rates, charges and collection and hardship policy has not had any major changes. It has been operating quite well. And so we've just updated roles and responsibilities and some references in the tables. And also it's just noting that there have been some legislative changes which will come into play next year. And so we'll be updating the policy in response to those legislation changes once they're enacted. Councillors, there's a recommendation on page 120, again, to note and adopt the policy and to publicise the noting and adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bray. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification regarding this item to Director Bray? No? In that case, councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation, or note the recommendation and have it published that begins on page 120 of the council agenda, please.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Hayes-Burke. Thank you, Councillor Hayes-Burke. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Murray?
Just to say that it's a review, and there are some minor changes there, but nothing major. It is it's worth having a look at. It's an attempt, our considered attempt to cater for financial hardship of some of our ratepayers, our residential ratepayers, and I believe it's a good policy and one that I recommend to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Hayes-Burke, would you like to speak to the motion? Okay. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Oh, sorry, Councillor Hayes-Burke.
Oh, sorry, I was just voting on it.
Okay. I haven't got to that yet.
It's delayed, I think, here, so I'm getting in early.
Okay. So if no other councillors would like to speak to it, I will put the motion to a vote. So can I see a show of hands for all those in favour? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. I'm now moving to page 125 of the agenda, item 9.4.3, review, disposal of sale of council assets policy and procedure. Director Bray, can we have a summary, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, the disposal and sale of assets, policies and procedures was put in place after the Vargo report into local government fraud and corruption controls. It's quite a detailed policy with very detailed procedures. It's been working very well in terms of ensuring that there is a transparent process around the disposal of council assets. The changes to the policy really just are around the translation into the new policy templates, updating some document references and position title references. The Audit and Risk Committee reviewed the policy and they wanted to focus on best value, achieving best value for money in terms of the disposal of assets, and also ensuring that there is a linkage between when we dispose of an asset and our assets registered, and making sure that that loop is closed. So, councillors, there's a recommendation on page 125 to note and adopt the updated policy and to publicise that new policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bray. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification for the Director regarding this policy, this item? No? Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Dickinson. You're on mute, Councillor Dickinson. I can see, you just realised.
I'd like to move the motion as stated on page 125.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Hourigan. Thank you, Councillor Hourigan. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Dickinson?
Just to say that it was Vargo initiated and it's a transparent document, and I think that makes it good for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Horrigan, would you like to speak to the motion? Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No. Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And to declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. So moving to item or page 131, item 9.5.1, review risk management policy 2022. Director Bray, can we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, councillors. We did review this policy and it was decided that we needed to do a bit of a complete rewrite of the policy. So it's been translated into the new policy template. But we've also included quite a few new sections around how we, around our risk management approach, which reflects the work that we were doing with our audit and risk committee around the strategic risk register and identifying things like our risk appetite, risk ratings, and just the whole framework and the way that we make decisions and assessments around risk. So the policy has been completely refreshed. It's obviously been through the Audit and Risk Committee. They did not request any changes to the policy. And so there's a recommendation on page 131, again, to note and adopt the revised policy and to publicise that to our community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Bray. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for the officer on this item? No? Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I just move that we note, adopt and publish our risk management policy as detailed on page 131 of our agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Haysberg. Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Murray?
Just to recommend this to you by saying that this framework, this risk management framework and the way it operates is important in our council to manage our risk in the community. And we've seen lots of risk of late around the place. It is important, and I recommend this to you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Haysberg, would you like to speak to the...
Thanks. Yeah, I'd just like to congratulate officers on preparing this. It's really detailed and it's a great policy, and it makes me realise that in council, in everything we do, we really do, we must consider risk. And it's important in everything we do to protect residents and our ability to carry out services, to protect the environment, protect officers, and obviously to avoid litigation. So, yeah, I do commend this to the community. I think it's a great document.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? No? Okay, councillors, I should put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands? All those in favour, please. And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. So moving to page 136 of the agenda, item 9.5.2, review of council expenses policy. Director Bray, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, we must have a council expenses policy under the Local Government Act. We've had a policy in place for quite some time. We've undertaken a review, translated it into the new template, updated some references. We've also provided some clarity around the reimbursement of childcare costs, just to respond to a few questions that we've had around that. And we referred it to the Audit and Risk Committee, and there was a minor change in terms of deleting the dollar or the cents reference to the Australian Tax Office rebate for kilometre mileage. And so that's been deleted and reflected in the policy that's attached to your agenda. And so there's a recommendation on page 136 to note, adopt and promote the updated council expenses policy. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Bray. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification of the Director? No? Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Horrigan.
you going back and forth from turning off your mic and then bringing up your policy. I'd like to move a motion that we adopt the recommendation on page 136 of the agenda, which is noting and adopting the updated council expenses policy for 2022 and placing the updated policy on the council's website, along with the publication notice in the council's weekly newspaper, column, social media, and informing the community about the adoption of the updated policy. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Dickinson. Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Horrigan?
Yes, please, Mayor Binks. I think it's very important that we are upfront and honest with the community about how little we get paid, things like kilometres. I know that Sally Hayes Burke and myself, we both have young kids, so we do struggle with childcare and having meetings at night time as well might mean that we, require nannies if our partners are working, etc. So it's a document that I'm glad will be uploaded, and so that we are very transparent on what we can and cannot claim. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. Councillor Dickinson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Once again, it's transparency, and that can only be good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No. Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. I'm now moving on to page 141 of our agenda, item 9.5.3, review of the Public Transparency Policy 2022. Director Bray, can we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking about transparency, we've got the Public Transparency Policy, which we adopted, another requirement under the Local Government Act. We adopted it originally in August 2020. We've undertaken a review. Again, it's working well. We've just translated it to the new policy template, updated references, and defined roles and responsibilities and accountabilities a little bit more than the existing policy. Again, there's a recommendation on page 141 to note, adopt and publicise the updated policy. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Bray. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification for the officer? No? Okay. Can I have a motion, please, councillors, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Rayburn.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as printed on 141 be adopted by Council, and also I'd like to commend the Director of People and Governance. The last 6 policies have all been done by that section, and I compliment the person on doing that, and that's the staff. And also, this is about transparency, and I'm being very open and transparent on this.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Do I have a second for the motion? Councillor Murray. Thank you, Councillor Murray. And Councillor Rayburn, did you want to speak to the motion?
No, just compliment everything that we're doing on our being so, as Councillor Dickinson says, transparent. We're so much. It's unbelievable. Local government is so transparent, but you get into the federal sphere and they don't want to be seen to be doing anything because they're scared of what the people may say about them. Where we're very open, very transparent on exactly what's going on in our world.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I'd just like to support really Councillor Rayburn, what Councillor Rayburn has got to say about our transparency of transparency. And I'd also like to thank our Director of People and Governments, Director Bray, for all her hard work. It's been a mammoth task this last bit, and having sat on the Audit and Risk Committee and seen some of her efforts over a considerable period of time whilst being unwell and going through all those problems there is that's a mammoth task. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Hayes-Burke?
Yeah, I supported the comments that have been made, and I just also want to give a plug for our website now because it's even more transparent because our documents are a lot more easy to find. I'm sure the community will agree with that. So if you have any trouble navigating it, then yeah, I'm at a loss because I think it's great.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Okay, are there any further comments relating to this, or does anyone want to speak to it? Sorry, I am absolutely losing the plot right now. Okay, so we shall put the motion to a vote. That's where I'm up to. Councillors, can I see a show of hands for all those in favour? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Okay, moving on to page 146 of our agenda, item 9.5.4, the monthly performance report. Director Bray, may we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, Mayor Binks. September seems a long time away given what we've been through in the last few days, but we had another busy month. Development and pre-development inquiries are still high. Obviously, we've still had a lot of calls about roads and trees and potholes, and they will continue. I hate to think what the October figures are going to be like in November. But yes, it's continuing. The trends are continuing, and we are working as hard as we possibly can under some quite extreme circumstances now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Bray. Councillors, are there any questions to Director Bray regarding this item? Nope. Okay. Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Murray.
I'll move that we note the recommendation that's or the report that's listed on page 146 of our agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hourigan. Thank you, Councillor Hourigan. Would you like to speak to the report or the motion, Councillor Murray?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Hourigan. No. Any other councillor like to speak to the report? No. Okay, councillors, I'll put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving to page 163 of the agenda, 9.6.1, acting arrangements, Chief Executive Officer, annual leave, CEO Solomon. Can we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. In accordance with the Local Government Act, I submitted an application for leave from the 25th of November 2022 to the 1st of January 2023. Thank you, Mayor, who approved that leave. Section 111.23 of the Local Government Act allows Council to delegate to the CEO the power to appoint an acting CEO where that period does not exceed 28 days, as it does in this case. So, councillors, before you, there is a recommendation for your consideration to endorse the appointment of Amanda Tingay, Director of Community and Planning, to the acting role for that period of time, and note that a higher duties allowance will be paid in accordance with Council's higher duties policy for officers. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Solomon. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification for the CEO? No? Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Rayburn.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to move the recommendation on page 163 be adopted by Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Haysberg. Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Rayburn?
Enjoy your holiday, CEO.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Councillor Haysberg, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'm just happy to support this and for the CEO to have a well-deserved break after a crazy couple of years and not really getting a chance to get away anywhere. And now hopefully she does.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Any further councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Hourigan.
Who would have thought when Julie started, 2 months later, COVID hit and everyone was thrown into lockdown, and I don't think you've stopped since. So I'm very happy to see that you're finally going to get a break. 2 years of COVID and now you're going through flood. By the time that date comes, I think you'll be ready to collapse, but try and enjoy it.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Okay, moving to page 166 of the agenda, item 9.6.2, the 2021 to 22 annual report. Director Bray, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. And it's a bit of a shame that this is on sort of so late in the agenda, because it's actually our annual report, which outlines all of the things that we have achieved in the last 12 months. And despite all that COVID and the weather has thrown at us, we have achieved a significant amount for such a small organisation, with all of the challenges in terms of recruiting in a post-COVID environment, challenges with getting materials and contractors, and all of the challenges that COVID has thrown towards us. So the annual report consists of a performance report and also annual statements. We've had significant audits through the Auditor General, Victoria Auditor General's Office, and so it's been subject to quite significant scrutiny. It's gone through the Audit and Risk Committee. The councillors, if you can just indulge me for a few minutes in terms of some of the highlights. I know it's late, but I think it's just really important to acknowledge a lot of the work that we've been doing and undertaking over the last year. And this is just some of the, just a little snippet. So we had a 5-month consultation period with the community around the community vision and the council plan, which was the first time that we've done deliberative engagement and used a community panel. And although that was a significant amount of work, it was really fruitful, and I think it has given the community some ownership around the council plan and the community vision. We've also done some youth work. That we've got the climate change action plan that were adopted. We've got community grants that have been reviewed and awarded on several occasions. We've done the economic development strategy. We've got Ngambie Active Youth Hub and Netball Court redevelopment. We signed the Memorandum of Understanding with the Taungurung Land and Waters Council, which was a significant step. And I think we were one of the first councils to enter into such agreement. And I know we do have other councils asking our advice and seeking our input into undertaking a similar process. We had the Australian Rowing Championships as well, which was all organised at a very, very short time frame and led to some quite frenetic work from a lot of people. We've reviewed our branding. We've undertaken some streetscape works that has received some pretty good feedback from the community. We had the Winter Wonderland, which again was a COVID response in terms of trying to get some economic development back into our main shopping strips at Euroa and Ngambie. We have the Rocky Suspension Footbridge, which was tested out during the recent flood and is still standing, I'm happy to say, and it actually has done quite well. I was down there this morning having a look at that. And we've done a lot of consultation throughout the whole year, and that's just a snippet of all of the things that we do. So I certainly commend the annual report to you. It's got a lot of performance indicators that we have to report through the local government performance reporting framework. And so there's a lot of information. Again, talking about accountability and transparency, it's really just laying bare all that we do and how we're actually performing, and also the results of our community satisfaction survey as well. So there's a recommendation on page 166 to note and adopt the annual report, noting that it's been through that scrutiny through the Victoria Auditor General's Office. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Tingo. Oh, Director Tingo. Oh my gosh, I am Director Bray. Sorry, Director Tingo's gone. Is there, councillors, are there any questions for Director Bray? No? Okay, councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the recommendation on page 176 to adopt that report is accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. And do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Rayburn. Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Andrews?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pretty pleased to be part of the Strathbogie Council structure at the moment. There's 20 items listed there, and that's not exhaustive by any means. It shows the council is working very hard for the community and punching well above its weight, and so I'm pleased to recommend that report.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Rayburn, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, I'd just like to support Councillor Andrews' comments, and also thank the community, the councillors, and especially the council staff putting all this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Haysberg.
Thanks. Yeah, I concur with the remarks made, and I'm also really proud to be a part of this organisation. I think it's been an amazing year of achievement, and I really hope that we can share this widely so that the community can see what they're a part of and what we've achieved.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Councillor Murray. Sorry.
Yeah, just to reiterate that, I think it's really great to reflect on all the positives and the achievements, and not only for us and for officers, but also for the community more broadly. And I think the community is getting good service and good value from the Shire and from the council at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Horrigan.
Thanks, Mayor Binks. Big shout out to Kristen Favaloro and her team with communication and engagement. It's in the report, but oh my goodness, this last week, last 2 weeks, they're killing it. Honestly, they're doing so good. Love the podcast, love the e-newsletters. When we got that customer satisfaction survey, they were in there, they were looking at that, what can we do, you know, and coming up with all the ideas. And I know it's not just her, you know, all the directors, Director Bray, Director Vlad, I have to say, Director Tingay, all of them, I know, and below them, all their teams work so hard to achieve these results. So they are all the standout. But I did want to make a special mention that, you know, when we get the communication right, which obviously has to come from the rest of the directors, then we're really taking the community on that journey. And it's just a real highlight for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Horrigan. Councillor Dickinson, would you like to say something?
Thank you. Let's not waste this report. When you look at it in its totality, it's considerable. And let's get it out to the community so that they can see what's being done. Let's not sit on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Would any other councillor? I think that was everyone, actually. I've lost count. I think it was. Okay. Councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to page 172 of the agenda, 9.3.6, cost shifting advocacy campaign. CEO Salomon, can we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. On the 12th of September 2022, the Boroondara City Council Mayor, Councillor Jane Addis, wrote to all Victorian councils expressing concern about the extent of cost shifting from state government to local government, which is really limiting councils' ability to meet its future operational and infrastructure needs of the community. Rising expenses, ongoing rate capping, and the cost shifting pose increasing challenges for the financial sustainability of councils, and particularly small rural councils such as ours. In turn, this impacts negatively on our capacity to provide vital services and infrastructures that we need to deliver on behalf of our community. One of the things I would really like to call out is that councils such as ours deliver and manage many services and infrastructure, and compared to our revenue base, we are a very heavy asset heavy level of government. So in the report, it details a range of areas where councils over time have had to burden more and more of the additional costs of providing services, which are fundamentally delivered by, we deliver on behalf of state government. So we would like to highlight this and this recommendation on page 174 of your report. Really identifies that we note the letter and support this campaign by writing to the Premier of Victoria, Daniel Andrews, and other state local MPs just about the concern of the burden that this is placing on councils more broadly. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Solomon. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification of the CEO relating to this matter? Nope. Okay. Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Haysberg, thank you.
Thanks. Can I please move the motion on page 172 of the agenda?
Certainly. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Murray, thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Haysberg, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, sure, thanks. Yeah, it's worth noting on page 174 of the agenda all the items that impact council directly, and then obviously ratepayers that we're contributing to that we're not receiving enough funding for by the state government, and of course with the increased costs of things and you know, the difficulty in finding staff and supplies. It's there's a clear need to have more support from the state government. So I'm grateful for Bundoora for taking us on this journey and yeah, being so that we can be a part of the campaign. I'm not sorry. I just want to also add that we're not saying that the residents aren't entitled to these services. We really want the residents to have equal access to services as the larger shires that have a larger rate base, and so that's why we really think it's important to push for adequate services and adequate funding.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak to the item?
I'd just like to reiterate that these services that we're talking about really are important and for us and for our communities. So it's really about being, as a small shire, being compensated for the increased workload and effort that shire officers and council staff have got to go in areas such as emergency management, which we're seeing the last few weeks, which is an area which is cost shifted to us. Climate change, which we've been is an important area, but certainly has created some extra costs to manage that. Environment protection, waste services, planning and building, early years, maternal and child care, and those sorts of areas. School crossings we've talked a bit about today, and of course the our need to get increased funding on roads and infrastructure like that. So there's a lot to be done in terms of bring the state government into the game into these areas and try and reduce the amount of cost shifting that's going on to local government. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any other councillor like to speak to this item? Councillor Hourigan.
Thanks, Mayor Binks. I'm really glad that the Bundoora Shire have come out with this. And just to give you some figures, so from June 2022, inflation rose 6.1%. Yet Premier Daniel Andrews, or the Premier of State of Victoria, has set the rate cap for council at 1.75%. Now, I'm not saying that the rate cap should be increased and that it should be put on ratepayers. What I'm saying is that perhaps there's a problem here with what funding we're getting to what the inflation cost is at the moment. One of the items that we voted on tonight, there was supposed to be, I think, 10 projects, but we're only able to complete cost, you know, of what's happening. So who suffers at the end of the day? Our roads and our constituents that use those roads. Who gets the blame for that? Council. So it's really important, and there seems to be a theme. I think regional and rural Victoria have really had enough, and they really need to start listening. So I am more than for this report. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hourigan. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? No? Okay, councillors, I shall put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands? All those in favour? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Okay, CEO Solomon, do we have any notices of motion this evening?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, there are no notices of motion for this evening's meeting.
Do we have any notices of rescission?
Not for this evening's meeting, Mayor.
Is there any urgent business that we need to consider?
And through you once again, Mayor, there is no urgent business to consider tonight.
And finally, is there any confidential business to consider, CEO Solomon?
Thank you. Through you, there is no confidential business for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Solomon. Okay, councillors, the next meeting of council is the annual statutory meeting, which is scheduled to be held on Tuesday, the 8th of November, to be held in person at the Euroa Community Conference Centre and streamed through our website, commencing at 6 p.m. This is just our statutory meeting where we elect the mayor and the deputy mayor. So it will be a short meeting, and it is happening in the second week of November. And all those information will be on our website, and we'll update our social media as well. And then our next ordinary council meeting is scheduled to be held on Tuesday the 15th of November at 2022, also at the Euroa Community Conference Centre, commencing at 6 p.m. And before closing, can I just really implore everyone in the community to please continue to get prepared for the potential additional weather we're experiencing or going to experience at the end of the week. Please stay up to date with our social media, our website. We're on Instagram and Facebook. Councils are sharing the information as quickly as we can with communities. Please report any damage to assets to council. We are really working hard to have as swift a response as we can to this, but please also have patience as we are a small shire with limited resources. So yeah, we're not going to get everything done when we'd like to, but we are really working hard, and the effort that I've seen from our staff in the last week has just been exceptional. And yeah, we're all gearing up again for a potential another big week and weekend. So I just really ask that everyone please get prepared. Please listen to emergency services and the directions that come from those people. And we will get through this, and we'll get through this together, and with great community support and collaboration, and we will come out the other side. So thank you all very much, and please don't hesitate to get in contact with me if there's anything you want to discuss, or any of our other councillors, or through the 1800 council number. So there being no further business, I declare that this meeting is closed at 9:34 p.m. and I thank you all, and good night. And